A woman who walked into Manhattan's grandest ballroom tonight was pronounced dead 6 months ago. On her finger was a wedding ring identical to the one her husband's new wife was wearing. Before 300 of New York's wealthiest people, in front of press cameras and federal agents, Seraphina Vale had just turned Damian Crow, the city's most powerful underworld boss, into a fraud, a bigot, and a criminal about to lose everything. But this was only the beginning of the battle. Follow this story to the end. Like and comment where you're watching to let me know how far this story has progressed. The chandeliers in this Blackthorn Grand Hotel ballroom hung like frozen explosions of light, each crystal prism worth more than most people earned in a year. Beneath them, 300 of New York's wealthiest predators circled each other in tuxedos and gowns that cost what a family sedan cost, smiling with teeth that had been whitened and straightened into weapons of charm. The charity gala, ostensibly raising money for at-risk youth, though no one in attendance had ever met an at-risk youth and preferred to keep it that way, hummed with the particular frequency of power consolidating itself. Senators shook hands with hedge fund managers. Tech billionaires laughed at jokes told by men whose fortunes came from less legal channels. And at the center of it all, holding court like a king who'd never needed a crown, stood Damian Crow. He looked good. He always looked good. 6'2", broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that made people trust him before their rational minds could intervene. Salt and pepper haircut sharp. Suit tailored so precisely, it seemed like his body had been built to specifications provided by his tailor rather than the other way around. At 43, Damian Crow had spent 2 decades building an empire that stretched from New York to Monaco, from legitimate real estate holdings to offshore accounts that would make a forensic accountant weep. He owned judges, he owned cops, he owned entire city blocks and the politicians who represented them. And beside him, glowing like she'd been dipped in champagne and diamonds, stood Vivian Marrow, 26 years old, blonde in the way that required a colorist who charged $400 an hour. A former model turned philanthropist, though her primary charitable work seemed to involve looking beautiful at events exactly like this one. She wore a white gown that probably cost $60,000 and a smile that suggested she believed every word of the story Damian had told her about his past. Her left hand rested on his arm, and on her 4th finger sat a platinum wedding band encrusted with diamonds that caught the light every time she moved. They'd been married for 4 months. The doors at the far end of the ballroom opened. A woman walked in. The first person to notice was a waiter refilling champagne glasses near the entrance. He stopped mid-pour, the bottle tilted at an angle that would have resulted in spillage if his hand hadn't frozen completely. The second person to notice was a society reporter from the Times, a woman named Patricia Chen, who'd covered Manhattan's elite for 15 years and had developed an instinct for when something was about to detonate. She turned, saw the woman in the doorway, and her mouth opened slightly. The woman wore a crimson gown. Not red, crimson. The color of blood that had been spilled hours ago and had started to darken. The dress was simple, no crystals, no elaborate design, but it fit her like it had been sewn directly onto her body by someone who understood exactly what they were doing. Her dark hair fell past her shoulders in waves that looked effortless, but probably weren't. She was beautiful, but not in the way Vivian was beautiful. Vivian's beauty was the kind you saw in magazines, the kind that made you think of champagne and yachts, and laughter that never had any real weight behind it. This woman's beauty had weight, it had history, it had teeth. She walked into the ballroom like she owned it. More heads turned. Conversation stuttered to a halt. The string quartet in the corner kept playing because they hadn't been informed that the world was about to crack open, but within 30 seconds, the music was the only sound in a room that had been roaring with noise moments before. Damian saw her. Patricia Chen, watching from 20 feet away, would later describe the look on Damian Crow's face as the exact moment a man realizes he's been shot but hasn't felt the pain yet. His smile didn't fall, his posture didn't change, but something behind his eyes went dark and cold and absolutely lethal. Vivian felt him tense and looked up. "Damian? What's wrong?" He didn't answer. The woman in crimson walked through the center of the ballroom. She didn't rush. She didn't hesitate. She moved like someone who'd spent months imagining this exact moment, rehearsing every step, every breath, every angle of light. The crowd parted for her the way people part for ambulances, instinctively. Without conscious thought, she stopped 10 feet from Damian and Vivian. Up close, Patricia Chen could see details she'd missed from across the room. The woman was probably in her late 30s. There were faint lines around her eyes that suggested she'd either spent a lot of time smiling or a lot of time crying, and Chen suspected it was the latter. She wore no jewelry except for one thing: a wedding ring. Platinum, diamonds, identical to the one on Vivian's hand. "Hello, Damian," the woman said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. Everyone within 30 feet heard it. Everyone within 30 feet would remember it for the rest of their lives. Damian's jaw tightened. "Seraphina." Vivian's head snapped toward him. "Who?" "I'm his wife," Seraphina said, looking at Vivian for the first time. Her expression wasn't cruel. It wasn't even angry. It was something worse. It was patient. "I'm sorry. I know that's confusing. Let me clarify." She raised her left hand so the ring caught the chandelier light. Vivian looked at the ring, looked at her own ring, looked at Damian. "Damian," her voice cracked. "What is she talking about?" "Seraphina," Damian said quietly. "This isn't the place." "You're right," Seraphina said. "This is a charity gala. We're here to help at-risk youth. So let me help everyone here understand the risk they're taking by doing business with you." She turned slightly so her voice would carry to the entire room. Patricia Chen pulled out her phone and started recording. 3 other reporters did the same. A senator near the bar looked like he was calculating how fast he could get to the exit. "6 months ago," Seraphina said, "my husband decided he was tired of me. I wasn't young enough anymore. I wasn't decorative enough. I had opinions about how he made his money, and that made me inconvenient. So he did what powerful men do when women become inconvenient. He erased me." "Seraphina, stop." Damian's voice had gone very quiet. People who knew him well knew that was when he was most dangerous. She didn't stop. "He cut off my access to our bank accounts. He destroyed my fashion business by calling in favors from every supplier and investor I'd ever worked with. He told the press I'd had a nervous breakdown and was recovering at a private facility in Switzerland. And then, when he met you," she looked at Vivian again, "he told you I was dead." Vivian's face had gone white. "That's not—" "Damian showed me." "Funeral photos." Seraphina's smile was terrible. "Death certificate?" "I'm guessing Swiss authorities, very official-looking documentation. Probably even had a grave site he could show you if you asked. My husband is very thorough." "You need to leave," Damian said. His hand moved to Vivian's waist, possessive and protective in a way that made Seraphina's smile widen. "I'm not going anywhere," Seraphina said. "I spent 6 months preparing for tonight. Do you want to know what I've been doing while you thought I was broken and hiding overseas?" Silence. "I've been building a case," Seraphina said, "with lawyers, with forensic accountants, with federal investigators who are very interested in how a man with your declared income owns properties in Monaco, the Seychelles, and Dubai. I've been documenting every shell corporation, every fake charity, every offshore account you thought I didn't know about." Damian's expression didn't change, but his left hand curled into a fist. "You think I didn't pay attention?" Seraphina's voice dropped lower, more intimate, though everyone was still listening. "I was married to you for 8 years, Damian. I signed papers for you. I smiled at your business partners. I decorated your homes, and I ignored the men who came to meet with you at 3 in the morning. I knew exactly what you were. I just made the mistake of thinking that if I loved you enough, you'd eventually love me back." "Stop talking." Damian took a step forward. Seraphina didn't move. "The federal prosecutor's office will be issuing subpoenas tomorrow morning. They'll be looking at financial records going back 12 years. They'll be interviewing your associates, your lawyers, your accountants. They'll be freezing assets. And they'll be very interested to learn that you committed marriage fraud by marrying Vivian while still legally married to me." Vivian made a sound like she'd been punched. "That's bigamy," Seraphina said, almost conversationally. "It's a federal crime, but compared to everything else they're going to find, it's barely worth mentioning." The ballroom had gone so quiet that Patricia Chen could hear her own heartbeat. She kept recording. She knew she was watching something that would be replayed on every news station in America within hours. Damian's face had finally changed. The charm was gone. What replaced it was something raw and cold. "You have no idea what you've just done." I know exactly what I've done, Seraphina said. I've ended you. She turned to leave, walked 3 steps, then stopped and looked back over her shoulder. By the way, she said, there are federal agents in the parking lot waiting to serve you with a warrant. I'd run, but I don't think you'll make it very far. Then she walked out of the ballroom the same way she'd entered, alone, unhurried, absolutely certain of every step. Behind her, chaos erupted. 3 hours later, Seraphina sat in the back of a cab headed downtown and watched her phone explode with notifications. News alerts, text messages from numbers she didn't recognize, emails from reporters offering 6 figures for an exclusive interview. She turned the phone face down on the seat beside her and looked out the window at Manhattan sliding past in streaks of light and shadow. Her hands were shaking. They'd been shaking since she walked out of the Blackthorn. She'd held it together in the ballroom, held it together through the lobby, held it together until she was 3 blocks away and the adrenaline started to crash. Now her hands shook and her chest felt tight and she couldn't quite catch her breath. She'd done it. After 6 months of planning, after weeks of meetings with lawyers and investigators, after countless nights lying awake terrified that Damian would find out what she was doing and make her disappear for real, she'd walked into his world and detonated everything he'd built. And now there would be consequences. The cab pulled up outside a nondescript apartment building in Chelsea. Seraphina paid the driver and climbed out. The building was nothing like the penthouse she'd shared with Damian. This was a 5th-floor walk-up with water stains on the walls and a lock that stuck when you tried to turn the key. But it was hers. She'd rented it under her maiden name, paid 6 months in advance in cash. Damian didn't know it existed. She climbed the stairs slowly. Her feet hurt. The heels she'd worn to the gala were designed for standing still and looking beautiful, not for walking through Manhattan at midnight. By the time she reached her floor, she'd taken them off and was carrying them in one hand. She unlocked her door and stepped inside. The apartment was dark except for the glow of the city through the windows. 1 bedroom, a galley kitchen with barely enough room to turn around, a couch that came with the place and smelled faintly of cigarette smoke no matter how many times she'd tried to clean it. She'd lived in palaces. She'd lived in European estates with 50 rooms and staff who knew her coffee order without asking. Now she lived here. She dropped her shoes by the door and walked to the window. From 5 floors up, she could see across the street into other apartments. A family having a late dinner. A man watching television alone. A couple arguing in a kitchen, gesturing with the intensity of people who'd had this same fight 100 times before. Normal lives. Small lives. Lives that didn't include charity galas or federal investigations or husbands who erased you like you'd never existed. Her phone buzzed. She looked down. A text from Helena Ward, her attorney. Just 1 word. Done. Seraphina closed her eyes. It was done. The warrants had been served. Federal agents had escorted Damian Crowe out of the Blackthorn Grand Hotel in front of 300 witnesses and a dozen cameras. By morning, his face would be on every news website in the country. By next week, his business empire would be under federal investigation. By next month, he'd be in court facing charges that could put him in prison for decades. She'd done it. So why did she feel like she was about to throw up? She walked to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water with hands that still hadn't stopped shaking, drank it in 3 long swallows, poured another. The water tasted like old pipes and rust, but she didn't care. Her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Unknown number. She should let it go to voicemail. She should turn the phone off entirely. But some masochistic part of her wanted to know who was calling at midnight on the night she'd destroyed her husband's empire. She answered, "Hello?" Silence for 3 seconds. Then a voice she knew better than her own. "You've made a mistake." Damian. Her stomach dropped. "How did you get this number?" "I've always had this number," he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that came before hurricanes. "Did you really think I didn't know about the apartment? About Helena Ward? About every meeting you've had with federal investigators for the past 3 months?" Seraphina's mouth went dry. "I knew," Damian said. "I knew everything. I let you build your little case because I wanted to see how far you'd go. And now I know." "The warrants will be handled," he said. "I have lawyers who cost more per hour than you made in a year from that sad little fashion business you think I destroyed. I have judges who owe me favors, I have federal agents on my payroll. Did you really think one public scene would end me? They have evidence. They have paper trails that lead nowhere, Damian said. They have accounts I stopped using years ago. They have testimony from people who will suddenly develop amnesia when they realize what's good for them. You've done nothing except embarrass me, Seraphina, and that's a problem. She forced herself to breathe. I'm not afraid of you. Yes, you are, he said quietly. You should be. The line went dead. Seraphina stood in her kitchen holding the phone against her ear for a full minute after he hung up. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. Her entire body had gone cold and numb, and very, very still. He'd known. He'd known everything she was doing, and he'd let her do it anyway because he was that confident it wouldn't matter. She walked to her window and looked down at the street. A black sedan was parked across from her building. It hadn't been there when she came home. She watched it for 30 seconds. Didn't see anyone inside, but she knew someone was there, watching, waiting. She stepped back from the window and closed the curtains. The next morning, the story was everywhere. Mystery wife exposes Manhattan kingpin at charity gala. Damian Crowe arrested on fraud, racketeering charges. Who is Seraphina Vale? Patricia Chen's video had gone viral within hours. 10 million views by sunrise, 20 million by noon. News stations played it on loop, analyzing every frame, every word, every expression on Damian's face when Seraphina revealed herself. Seraphina watched the coverage from her apartment with the curtains still closed. The black sedan was gone, but she didn't trust that. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Damian's voice. I knew everything. Her phone rang. Helena Ward. This time she answered. Have you seen the news? Helena's voice was sharp, energized. She was a divorce attorney who specialized in high-profile cases, the kind of lawyer other lawyers hired when their marriages imploded. 56 years old, iron gray hair, a reputation for being absolutely merciless in court. We're everywhere. I've had 6 interview requests just this morning. This is good. This is exactly what we wanted. He called me, Seraphina said. Silence. Last night, Seraphina continued, Damian called me. He said he knew everything. He said the charges won't stick. He's posturing, Helena said, but her voice had lost some of its certainty. He's trying to scare you. It's working. Listen to me. Helena's voice sharpened. Men like Damian Crowe have spent their entire lives making people afraid of them. It's how they maintain power. But the federal prosecutor's office doesn't scare easily. They've been building a RICO case against Damian's organization for 2 years. What you gave them, the documentation, the account numbers, the testimony, that's what they needed to move forward. He can't make that disappear. He said he has judges. Every criminal says that, Helena interrupted. They all claim they own half of law enforcement. Most of the time it's bullshit. And even if he does have some connections, you've gone public now. That changes everything. The entire country is watching. It's a lot harder to make evidence disappear when CNN is camped outside the courthouse. Seraphina closed her eyes. There's a car that was outside my building last night. Black sedan? Yes. I'll call the police, and I'm sending someone from my security team to stay with you until this is over. I can't afford... You're not paying, Helena said. Consider it an investment in my most high-profile case of the year. I'll be at your apartment in an hour. Don't open the door for anyone except me. She hung up. Seraphina sat on her couch and tried to remember how to breathe normally. Ick. The security guard Helena sent was a woman named Monica Torres. Late 30s, former NYPD, built like she could break a man in half if she needed to, and had probably done it a few times. She arrived at noon, surveyed Seraphina's apartment in about 90 seconds, and immediately started making a list of security upgrades. Deadbolt is shit, she said. Window locks are worse. Fire escape is a highway for anyone who wants in. You're basically living in a cardboard box. That's comforting, Seraphina said. Monica looked at her. You want comfort, or you want honesty? Honestly, I want to not get murdered in my sleep. Then we upgrade everything. Monica pulled out her phone and started making calls. Within an hour, Seraphina's apartment was full of contractors installing new locks, window alarms, and a security camera pointed at the street. Monica supervised everything with the intensity of someone planning a military operation. Helena arrived at 2 with a banker's box full of documents and a laptop. She sat up at Seraphina's kitchen table like she was moving in. "The good news," she said, spreading files across the table, "is that the federal case is moving faster than expected. They're freezing Damian's primary accounts today. That means he can't move money around to hide assets. It also means he can't pay his legal team as easily, which is going to piss them off. And the bad news? Vivian Marrow filed for an emergency annulment this morning," Helena said. "She's claiming fraud, emotional distress, and about 15 other things. Her lawyers are calling it predatory marriage. They're painting her as a victim." "She is a victim," Seraphina said. "Maybe, but she's also positioning herself to grab whatever assets survive the federal seizure. She's smart, or her lawyers are." Seraphina sat down across from Helena. "What happens to me?" Helena looked up from her documents. "What do you mean?" "If they freeze everything, if the government takes his money, what happens to me? I'm still legally his wife. Am I entitled to anything, or does it all disappear?" "That depends on what we can prove was acquired before versus during the marriage," Helena said. "And what was obtained legally versus illegally. If an asset is tied to criminal activity, it gets seized. If it was legitimately earned or purchased, it goes into the marital estate and we fight for your share." Betrayal. She paused. "But I'm going to be honest with you, Seraphina. Most of Damian's fortune is probably going to get seized, and whatever's left is going to be tied up in legal battles for years. You're not going to walk away from this rich and—" "I don't want to be rich," Seraphina said quietly. "I want to be free." Helena studied her for a long moment. "Then we focus on the divorce, and we let the feds handle the criminal case. We get you separated from him legally, financially, and personally. That's the goal. Freedom." Seraphina nodded. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You looked beautiful last night." Her blood went cold. Another text. "Crimson was always your color." Helena saw her expression change. "What?" Seraphina handed her the phone. Helena read the messages. Her jaw tightened. "We're changing your number. Today. He'll just get the new one. Then we change it again, and we document every message he sends because this is harassment and it's evidence." She looked up at Monica. "Can you trace these?" Monica took the phone and studied it. "Probably a burner, but I'll try." Another text came through while Monica was holding the phone. "We need to talk. Tomorrow. Madison Square Park. Noon. Come alone, or I'll know." Monica showed it to Helena. "Don't go," Helena said immediately. If you don't, nothing happens. He's trying to control you. He's trying to isolate you. That's what abusers do when they're losing power. They demand private meetings. They make threats. They try to pull you back into their orbit." Helena leaned forward. "You've already won, Seraphina. You exposed him in front of the entire city. Don't let him pull you back into his game." Seraphina looked at the message on her phone. "Come alone, or I'll know." She thought about Damian's voice on the phone last night. Calm, confident, like he was 3 steps ahead of everyone else and knew exactly how this would end. "I need to go," she said. "That's insane," Helena said. "He knows where I live," Seraphina said. "He knows everywhere I go. If I don't meet him in a public place during the day, he'll find another way to get to me. At least in the park there will be people around. And if he tries something, then you'll have Monica follow me from a distance," Seraphina said. "And you'll have proof that he violated the protection order I'm filing today." Helena stared at her. "You're a lot tougher than I thought." "I'm terrified," Seraphina said, "but I spent 8 years being afraid of making Damian angry. I'm not doing that anymore." Madison Square Park at noon was full of tourists and office workers eating lunch in the autumn sun. Seraphina sat on a bench near the fountain wearing jeans, a sweater, and sunglasses that covered half her face. Monica was somewhere nearby. Helena had a team of associates stationed at strategic points around the park. Seraphina's phone was recording audio in her jacket pocket. Damian arrived at 12:07. He looked different in daylight. Older. Tired. The man who'd held court at the Blackthorn like a king now looked like someone who'd spent the night being processed by federal agents and hadn't slept since. But he still moved like he owned every space he entered, still smiled at a woman pushing a stroller like he was just another friendly stranger enjoying the park. He sat down beside Seraphina. "Thank you for coming," he said. She didn't look at him. "Say what you want to say. I want to apologize." That made her turn. "What?" "I handled this badly," Damian said. "The way I ended things between us. The way I treated you. You deserve better than that." Seraphina stared at him. "You're apologizing?" "I am. After you had me followed, after you called me at midnight to threaten me, after you—" "I was angry," Damian said. "I said things I shouldn't have, but I've had time to think, time to realize what I'm losing." He looked at her. "I still love you, Seraphina." She couldn't breathe. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," he continued. "I know I destroyed what we had. But I need you to understand that everything I did, the lies, the cruelty, pushing you away, it was because I was trying to protect you." "Protect me." Her voice came out broken. "From my world," Damian said. "From the business. From the people I deal with. You were always too good for that life. Too good for me. I thought if I pushed you away hard enough, you'd build a new life somewhere safe. Somewhere I couldn't touch you. That's the most manipulative bullshit I've ever heard. It's the truth." His voice was quiet, earnest, exactly the tone he'd used when they first met, when she'd believed everything he told her. "I love you. I've always loved you. And now I'm facing 40 years in federal prison because I couldn't let you go properly." Seraphina stood up. "I'm leaving." "Wait." Damian reached for her arm. She yanked away. He didn't try again. "I have an offer. I don't want anything from you." $10 million, he said. She stopped. "Offshore account," Damian continued. "The feds don't know about it. No one does. It's clean money, legitimately earned from real estate investments 15 years ago. I'll transfer it to you today. All you have to do is drop the cooperation agreement with the prosecutor's office." "I can't do that." "Yes, you can," Damian said. "Tell them you're too traumatized to testify. Tell them you need time to recover. They can't force you to cooperate. Without your testimony, half their case falls apart. Their witnesses get nervous. Their evidence gets circumstantial. I walk away with probation and community service instead of decades in prison." "And you think I'll help you do that?" "I think you're exhausted," Damian said. I think you've been fighting for 6 months, and you're running out of money and energy. I think you're living in a shitty apartment in Chelsea surrounded by bodyguards because you're afraid I'm going to hurt you. $10 million changes that. You disappear. You build a new life somewhere beautiful. You never think about me again." Seraphina looked at him. Really looked at him. The man she'd loved for 8 years. The man who'd promised her everything and then systematically destroyed her life when she became inconvenient. "You're still trying to control me," she said quietly. "I'm trying to save us both." "There is no us." "Seraphina, I spent 8 years making excuses for you," she said, "telling myself you weren't really that bad, that the business was separate from the man I loved, that if I just tried harder, you'd eventually see me as more than a possession." Her voice cracked. "But you never did. You never loved me. You loved owning me. And the second I became something you couldn't own, you tried to erase me. That's not—" "I'm not helping you," Seraphina said. "I'm not dropping the cooperation agreement. I'm not taking your money. I'm going to watch you go to prison, and I'm going to rebuild my life from nothing, and I'm going to be happy. Not because of anything you did or didn't do, but because I finally realized I deserve better than you." She walked away. This time, he didn't try to stop her. Helena was waiting at the park entrance with Monica. "Did you get it?" Seraphina nodded. Her hands were shaking again. "He tried to bribe me, offered $10 million to drop the cooperation agreement." "That's witness tampering," Helena said grimly. "That's another felony." She looked at Monica. "Tell me you recorded it." Monica held up a small device. "Every word." "Good." Helena started walking toward the street where her car was parked. "We're going straight to the prosecutor's office. They need to hear this today." Seraphina followed, her mind still replaying the conversation. The way Damian had looked at her, the way he'd said, "I still love you," like that somehow justified everything he'd done. He'd almost made her believe him. For just a moment, when he'd offered the money, she'd imagined what it would feel like to take it. To disappear to some coastal town in Portugal and never think about New York or Damian Crowe or federal prosecutors again. To just be done with all of it. But then she'd remembered something. 3 months ago, when she was first building her case with Helena, they'd interviewed a woman named Rachel Moreno. She'd been the girlfriend of one of Damian's former associates, a man named Carlos Santos, who threatened to expose some of Damian's offshore holdings to the IRS. 2 weeks after Carlos made that threat, he was killed in what police ruled a mugging gone wrong. Rachel Moreno had 2 daughters, 8 and 6 years old. They'd lost their father because he'd threatened Damian Crowe's empire. Seraphina thought about those little girls growing up without their father, and she thought about how many other people Damian had hurt, how many lives he'd destroyed, how many families he'd broken because they'd gotten in his way. $10 million couldn't buy absolution for that. Nothing could. See, the prosecutor's office was in a glass and steel building in Lower Manhattan that looked like every other government building in the city. Intimidating, impersonal, designed to make you feel small. Seraphina had been there twice before, once to give her initial statement and once to review documents. Both times she'd felt like she was betraying something fundamental by cooperating with law enforcement. Years of living with Damian had taught her that cops were the enemy, that prosecutors were just politicians looking for headlines, that the system was rigged against people like them. Now she was one of their key witnesses. Assistant U.S. Attorney Margaret Zhao met them in a conference room on the 8th floor. She was in her early 40s, wearing a suit that was probably from Banana Republic, and sensible heels that suggested she spent most of her time standing in courtrooms. She'd been building the RICO case against Damian Crowe's organization for 3 years, navigating a labyrinth of shell corporations, offshore accounts, and witnesses who kept developing amnesia whenever subpoenas were served. Seraphina's testimony had been the breakthrough she needed. "Play it," Margaret said after Helena explained what had happened in Madison Square Park. Monica connected her recording device to the conference room speakers. Damian's voice filled the room, smooth, reasonable, offering $10 million to obstruct a federal investigation like he was negotiating a business deal. Margaret listened without expression. When the recording ended, she was quiet for a long moment. "That's bold," she finally said. "That's desperate," Helena corrected. "Maybe both." Margaret looked at Seraphina. "You understand what this means?" "He violated his bail conditions," Seraphina said. "More than that, he attempted to bribe a witness in a federal criminal investigation. That's a separate felony. With this recording, we can revoke his bail and hold him pending trial." Margaret leaned forward. "But I need to know you're prepared for what comes next." "What do you mean?" "Right now, Damian thinks he's negotiating from a position of strength," Margaret said. "He thinks his lawyers can get him probation, that his connections will protect him, that this is just another business problem he can solve with money and intimidation. When we arrest him again and he realizes none of that is working, he's going to get dangerous. He'll look for leverage. He'll look for pressure points. And his primary pressure point is you." Seraphina's chest tightened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we can protect you," Margaret said. "Witness protection, relocation, new identity if necessary. But you need to decide how far you're willing to go." "I'm already all in," Seraphina said. "Are you?" Margaret's voice wasn't unkind, just direct. "Because there's a difference between exposing your ex-husband at a charity gala and testifying in federal court while he's sitting 20 feet away staring at you. There's a difference between cooperating with prosecutors and spending years looking over your shoulder wondering if one of his associates is going to come after you." "She can handle it," Helena said. "I'm asking her," Margaret said, still looking at Seraphina. "Can you?" Seraphina thought about the little girls who'd lost their father. She thought about Rachel Moreno testifying through tears about how Carlos had been a good man, a loving father, someone who'd made one mistake by trusting the wrong people. She thought about every woman Damian had ever hurt, controlled, or discarded when they stopped being useful. "Yes," she said. "I can handle it." Margaret nodded. "Then we move forward. I'll get a warrant issued for witness tampering within the hour. Damian Crowe will be back in federal custody by tonight." They arrested him at his lawyer's office downtown. Seraphina wasn't there. Monica and Helena had taken her back to Chelsea, upgraded her security again, and basically put her on lockdown, but she watched it on the news like everyone else. Video footage showed federal agents walking Damian out of a sleek office tower in handcuffs. He didn't look scared. He didn't look angry. He looked like a man who'd been expecting this and was just going through the motions. His lawyer, some silver-haired partner from a white shoe firm that charged $4,000 an hour, walked beside him giving a statement to reporters about overreach and prosecutorial misconduct and his client's innocence. No one was listening. The narrative had already been written. Damian Crow, from Manhattan, kingpin to federal prisoner in 48 hours. Seraphina watched the footage 3 times. Each time she expected to feel something: satisfaction, vindication, relief. Instead, she just felt hollow. This was what winning looked like. So why did it feel like losing? Her phone rang. Unknown number. She'd changed it twice since Madison Square Park, but somehow the calls kept coming. She answered anyway because at this point, what did it matter? Seraphina Vale? A woman's voice. Young, uncertain. Who is this? My name is Vivian Marrow. A pause. I think we need to talk. Seraphina stared at her phone like it had just turned into a snake. You still there? Vivian's voice came through thin and brittle like glass about to crack. I'm here. Can we meet? Please. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I just need to understand what happened, what he did. To both of us. Seraphina closed her eyes. The last person she wanted to see was the woman who'd been sleeping in her bed, wearing her jewelry, living the life that should have still been hers. But something in Vivian's voice, the raw desperation, sounded familiar. It sounded like Seraphina 8 years ago, when she'd first started realizing that the man she'd married wasn't who she thought he was. Where? Seraphina asked. Anywhere. You pick. I can't be alone with this anymore. Helena was going to kill her. Monica was going to physically restrain her. But Seraphina was so tired of being told what to do, tired of lawyers and bodyguards and federal prosecutors treating her like a chess piece instead of a person. There's a coffee shop on West 23rd, she said. Dante's, tomorrow morning at 8. Come alone. I will. Thank you. Vivian hung up before Seraphina could change her mind. Chantit. Monica did try to physically restrain her. This is insane, she said, standing between Seraphina and the apartment door at 7:30 the next morning. You're meeting the woman who married your husband while you were still married to him. The woman whose lawyers are trying to grab whatever assets you're entitled to. The woman who might be working with Damian to... She's not working with Damian, Seraphina said. You don't know that. I heard her voice. She's terrified. So are you, Monica said. Which is why you shouldn't be leaving this apartment to meet a woman you don't know in a public place where anyone could... I'm going, Seraphina said flatly. You can follow me if you want, but I'm going. Monica stared at her for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. Fine, but I'm sitting at the next table, and if anything feels wrong, we're leaving immediately. Deal. Dante's Coffee was the kind of place that survived in Manhattan by being aggressively unremarkable. Bad art on the walls, coffee that tasted like it had been brewed yesterday, furniture that looked like it had been stolen from a dentist's waiting room in 1987. But it was always empty in the mornings, which meant privacy, and it had big windows facing the street, which meant witnesses. Seraphina arrived first, ordered black coffee she didn't drink, sat at a table in the back corner where she could see the door. Monica took a table near the window with a newspaper she pretended to read while actually watching everyone who walked past. Vivian arrived at 8:03. She looked worse than she had at the gala. No makeup, hair pulled back in a ponytail that hadn't been brushed. Wearing jeans and an oversized sweater that probably belonged to someone else because it didn't fit right. She'd lost weight. Her face had a hollowed-out quality that Seraphina recognized from her own mirror. She spotted Seraphina and walked over. Didn't ask permission to sit, just dropped into the chair across the table like her legs had stopped working. Thank you for coming, Vivian said. You called me. I know, She stopped, started again. I didn't know about you, about any of it. I know you probably don't believe me, but I swear I didn't know. Seraphina studied her. He told you I was dead. He showed me photographs, Vivian said. Her voice cracked. A funeral, a gravestone. He said you'd been sick for a long time and that you died in Switzerland 3 years ago. He said he didn't like to talk about it because it was too painful. And you believed him? Why wouldn't I? Vivian's eyes were red-rimmed. He seemed so broken up about it. There were nights when he'd wake up and I'd find him just staring at this photo of you. He said he kept it because he couldn't let go, that you were the love of his life and he'd never get over losing you. She laughed, but it came out as a sob. I actually felt sorry for him. I thought I was helping him heal. Seraphina wanted to hate her, wanted to look at this young, beautiful woman who'd slept in her bed and feel nothing but rage. But all she felt was exhausted pity. How old are you? She asked. 26. Jesus. I know, Vivian said. I know how it looks. Rich old man, young model, tale as old as time. But it didn't feel like that. He didn't treat me like... She stopped. Actually, I don't know how he treated me. I thought he loved me. Now I don't know what was real. None of it was real, Seraphina said. That's what Damian does. He makes you believe you're special, that you're different from all the other women, that he's finally found someone who understands him. She leaned forward. But you're not special to him. You're useful. And the second you stop being useful, he'll erase you too. Vivian flinched like she'd been slapped. I'm sorry, Seraphina said, softer. But you need to hear it. Whatever you think you had with him, it wasn't love, it was control. I know that now, Vivian whispered. I keep thinking about all the times he told me he loved me, all the times we... She stopped, tears streaming down her face. How does someone lie like that? How does someone look you in the eye and make promises and plan a future when none of it means anything? Practice, Seraphina said. Damian's been doing this his whole life. You're not the first woman he's manipulated, and you won't be the last. Vivian wiped her face with her sleeve. My lawyers say I should fight you for the assets. They say legally I have as much claim as you do since I was married to him too, even if it was fraudulent. They say I'm entitled to compensation for emotional distress, and... She looked up. I don't want to fight you. What do you want? I want to understand what happened. I want to know who I was married to, and I want... Her voice dropped. I want to know if you think I'm going to be okay. Seraphina didn't answer immediately. She looked at this woman who was 8 years younger, who'd been lied to and manipulated and used by the same man who'd done the same things to her, who was sitting in a coffee shop at 8 in the morning asking for permission to survive. You're going to be okay, Seraphina said finally. It's going to take a long time. You're going to have days where you can't get out of bed, days where you question every decision you've ever made, days where you're so angry you can't see straight. But eventually you're going to wake up and realize you don't think about him anymore. And that's when you'll know you've won. Vivian stared at her. How long did it take you? I'll let you know when it happens. A sound that might have been a laugh escaped Vivian's throat. She wiped her face again. I'm supposed to hate you. My lawyers definitely want me to hate you, but I don't. Is that crazy? Probably, Seraphina said. But I don't hate you either. Why not? Because you're not the enemy, Seraphina said. He is. They sat in silence for a moment. Monica was still watching from across the room, her hand resting near her phone, like she was ready to call for backup at any second. Can I ask you something? Vivian said. Sure. When did you know? That he was lying? That everything was fake? When did you figure it out? Seraphina thought about it. There wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 small things. The way he'd disappear for days without explanation. The phone calls he'd take in another room. The men who'd come to the apartment at weird hours and he'd introduce them as business associates, but they'd look at me like I was a problem to be solved. She paused. But I think the moment I really knew was when I asked him directly if he was involved in anything illegal, and he looked me in the eye and said no, and I realized I didn't believe him. What did you do? Nothing. For a long time I did nothing. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was lucky to be married to someone powerful and successful, that every marriage had secrets. Seraphina's voice hardened. And then he replaced me with you, and I realized I'd wasted 8 years of my life loving someone who'd never loved me back. Vivian looked down at her hands. I'm sorry. For what? For being part of what he did to you. You didn't know, Seraphina said. He made sure of that. Doesn't matter, I still... Vivian's phone buzzed. She looked at it, and her face went white. What? Vivian turned the phone so Seraphina could see the screen. A text from an unknown number. I know you're with her. Bad decision, Vivian. Seraphina's stomach dropped. She looked around the coffee shop. Nothing seemed wrong. The few other customers were absorbed in their laptops and phones. Monica was already standing, scanning the street through the window. Another text appeared on Vivian's phone. Tell Seraphina I have something she wants. Tell her to check her email. Seraphina pulled out her own phone with shaking hands, opened her email. The newest message had no subject line and came from an address that was just random letters and numbers. She clicked it. A video file. She pressed play. The footage was grainy, shot from a high angle like a security camera. It showed the interior of what looked like a storage unit, concrete floor, metal walls, a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, and in the center of the frame, tied to a chair, was Helena Ward. Seraphina's lawyer looked like she'd been beaten. Blood on her face, one eye swollen shut, her shirt torn, but she was alive. She was breathing. A voice off camera, Damian's voice. Hello, Seraphina. I assume you're watching this with my dear wife, Vivian. How's your little coffee date going? Making friends? Comparing notes about what a terrible person I am? Helena tried to say something, but her words were muffled by the gag in her mouth. Your lawyer here has been very helpful, Damian continued. She told me all about your cooperation agreement with the prosecutor's office, about the evidence you've gathered, about your plans to testify at my trial. A pause. I'm disappointed, Seraphina. I gave you a very generous offer yesterday, $10 million to walk away, and instead you had me arrested for witness tampering. That hurt my feelings. Helena struggled against the ropes binding her to the chair. So here's my new offer, Damian said. You have 24 hours to withdraw your cooperation agreement with the federal prosecutor. Tell them you were coerced. Tell them you lied. Tell them whatever you want. But if I'm not released from custody by this time tomorrow, your lawyer dies. And then I start working through everyone else you care about. Monica, Margaret Zhao, that barista at Dante's who always remembers your coffee order. The video went black. Seraphina couldn't breathe. The coffee shop spun around her. She heard Monica's voice from somewhere far away, asking if she was okay, but she couldn't make her mouth form words. Vivian was crying. Oh my God! Oh my God! Is he going to— We need to leave, Monica said, already pulling Seraphina out of her chair. Now. They were halfway to the door when Seraphina's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Did you watch it? Damian's voice was calm, conversational, like they were discussing dinner plans. Where is she? Somewhere safe. For now. If you hurt her, then what? Damian interrupted. You'll go to the police? You'll tell the federal prosecutors? Seraphina, I'm already facing 45 years in prison. You think I'm worried about adding a kidnapping charge? You're in federal custody, Seraphina said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. How are you— Making phone calls, sending videos, running my organization from inside a cell? Damian laughed. I have people, Seraphina. I've always had people. That was the part of my business you never wanted to see. The part where money and fear buy loyalty that survives prison walls. Monica was trying to pull her toward the door, but Seraphina yanked her arm away. What do you want? She asked. I told you, withdraw your cooperation. Convince the prosecutor you were lying about everything. Tell them I never tried to bribe you, that you fabricated the recording, that you're an unstable ex-wife seeking revenge. They'll never believe that. They will if you're convincing enough, Damian said. You're a good actress, Seraphina. You spent 8 years pretending you didn't know what I really did for a living. Surely you can spend a few hours pretending you made everything up. And if I do this, you'll let Helena go? Yes. I don't believe you. I don't care, Damian said. You have 24 hours. The clock started 5 minutes ago. He hung up. Seraphina stood in the middle of Dante's coffee, holding her phone, aware that everyone in the shop was staring at her. Vivian was still crying. Monica was on her phone, probably calling Helena's firm, the police, the FBI, everyone she could think of. But Seraphina knew it wouldn't matter. Damian had planned this. He'd anticipated every move she'd make, every ally she'd turn to, every resource she'd try to use. He'd been 3 steps ahead since the beginning, and now he had Helena. Wotan. Margaret Zhao's office was chaos. Federal agents, police detectives, Helena's law partners. Everyone talking over each other, making calls, pulling up surveillance footage, trying to figure out how the hell a man in federal custody had managed to orchestrate a kidnapping. Seraphina sat in a chair in the corner and watched it all happen like she was underwater. Sounds were muffled, faces blurred together. Someone brought her water. She didn't drink it. Monica sat beside her, still on her phone, coordinating with her own security contacts. Vivian had come with them and was now being interviewed by a detective about the text messages she'd received. Margaret appeared in front of Seraphina. "I need you to focus." Seraphina looked up. "I know you're scared," Margaret said, "but I need you to tell me everything, every detail from the video, anything that might help us locate where they're holding her." "It was a storage unit," Seraphina said. Her voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. "Concrete floor, metal walls, one light, no windows." "Did you hear anything in the background? Traffic, trains, airplanes?" Seraphina tried to remember, tried to focus on anything other than the image of Helena's beaten face. "No." It was quiet. "What about the angle of the camera? High up, eye level?" "High, like a security camera in the corner of the room." Margaret turned to one of the agents. "Pull every storage facility within 50 miles. Focus on ones with 24-hour security camera systems. If Damian's organization owns property or has business connections to any facility, flag it immediately." The agent nodded and started typing. Margaret looked back at Seraphina. "We're going to find her." "You don't know that." "I've been doing this for 15 years, Margaret said. "I've handled kidnappings, hostage situations, cases where criminals tried to intimidate witnesses by going after their families. We have resources. We have experience. We will find Helena Ward." "In 24 hours? Margaret didn't answer. She didn't have to. A detective approached. "We need to talk about the possibility that Ms. Vale might consider withdrawing her cooperation." Everyone in the room went quiet. Margaret's expression hardened. "Excuse me?" "I'm just saying," the detective continued, "if there's a chance we can resolve this without anyone getting hurt." "She's not withdrawing cooperation," Margaret said flatly. "That's not an option. A woman's life is at stake. And if we let Damian Crow dictate terms, more lives will be at stake," Margaret shot back. "He's a career criminal with connections to murder-for-hire operations. You think he's going to release Helena Ward alive just because Seraphina does what he wants? He'll kill her anyway to cover his tracks." "You don't know that," the detective said. "Yes, I do," Margaret said, "because I've seen what happens when we negotiate with people like him. They take what they want, and they kill the witness anyway." Seraphina stood up. "I'll do it." Everyone turned to look at her. "I'll withdraw my cooperation," she said. "I'll tell them whatever Damian wants me to say. I'll destroy the case if that's what it takes to get Helena back alive." "Seraphina," Monica started. "She's in danger because of me," Seraphina said. "Because I hired her. Because she agreed to help me. If she dies because I wanted revenge on my ex-husband," her voice broke. "I can't live with that." Margaret moved closer. "Listen to me very carefully. If you withdraw your cooperation, Damian walks. Not just from this case, from everything. His lawyers will argue prosecutorial misconduct. They'll claim you were a jilted ex-wife making false accusations. Every piece of evidence you provided becomes tainted. Every witness who came forward because of you becomes unreliable. He goes free. And then what do you think happens to you?" "I don't care." "Yes, you do," Margaret said. "You didn't spend 6 months building a case just to throw it away. You didn't walk into that ballroom and expose him in front of 300 people because you wanted him to win. You did it because you wanted justice." "Justice isn't worth Helena's life," Seraphina said. "Maybe not," Margaret said. "But letting Damian Crow walk free means he'll do this again. To other women, other families, other people who get in his way. Is that what you want?" Seraphina closed her eyes. She was so tired. Tired of fighting, tired of being strong, tired of being the person everyone expected her to be. She thought about Helena in that storage unit, beaten, terrified, waiting for someone to save her. She thought about Rachel Moreno's daughters growing up without their father. She thought about every woman Damian had ever manipulated, controlled, or destroyed. And she thought about the $10 million he'd offered her yesterday. How easy it would have been to take it and disappear. How much simpler her life would be if she'd just walked away. But she hadn't walked away. and she wasn't going to now. Find her, Seraphina said, opening her eyes. You have 24 hours to find Helena. If you can't... She looked at Margaret. If you can't, then I'm withdrawing my cooperation. I don't care what it costs. 18 hours later, they still hadn't found her. Seraphina sat in her apartment, surrounded by people who were trying to help and feeling completely alone. Monica paced near the window. Vivian had refused to leave, insisting that she wanted to help somehow, and was now making coffee that no one was drinking. Federal agents came and went with updates that weren't really updates. They'd searched 43 storage facilities. Nothing. They'd interviewed everyone in Damian's organization they could find. No one was talking. They'd pulled phone records, financial transactions, security footage from 100 locations. Still nothing. Helena Ward was somewhere in the city, tied to a chair, beaten and terrified, and no one could find her. Seraphina's phone buzzed. A text from the same unknown number. 6 hours left. She stared at the message. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. Monica saw her expression. What? Seraphina showed her. Monica immediately called Margaret. We need more time. If we could just... There is no more time, Seraphina said. She stood up. I'm calling him. Don't, Monica said. I have to. If you call him, you're giving him exactly what he wants. You're showing him he's winning. He is winning, Seraphina said. He's been winning this whole time. She dialed the number from the video. It rang twice. Seraphina. Damian sounded pleased. Right on schedule. Let me talk to her. Why? I need to know she's still alive. A pause. Then shuffling sounds. A muffled cry. She's alive, Damian said, back on the line. But she won't be for much longer if you don't do what I asked. I need more time. No. The prosecutor's office is closed for the day, Seraphina said, trying to keep her voice steady. I can't withdraw my cooperation until tomorrow morning. Give me until then. Nice try, Damian said. But I know Margaret Zhao's cell phone number. I know she's been at her office for the past 18 hours. You could walk in there right now and sign whatever paperwork they need. So stop stalling. Damian, please. 5 hours and 47 minutes, he said. I'd start walking if I were you. He hung up. Seraphina stood in her apartment looking at Monica, at Vivian, at the federal agents who'd been trying to find Helena and coming up empty. She looked at all these people who were fighting to protect her, fighting to bring Damian down, fighting for justice. And she realized she was going to disappoint all of them. I'm going to the prosecutor's office, she said. No, Monica said immediately. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice, Margaret Zhao said from the doorway. Seraphina hadn't heard her come in. She walked into the apartment looking like she hadn't slept in 2 days, carrying a tablet computer. And before you make it, I need you to see something. She set the tablet on the kitchen table, pulled up a video file. We've been going through security footage from every property connected to Damian's organization, Margaret said. Most of it's been useless, but an hour ago we found this. She pressed play. The footage showed the exterior of a warehouse in Red Hook, dated 3 days ago. 2 men getting out of a black SUV and going inside. Seraphina didn't recognize them. The video fast-forwarded. 4 hours later, the same men came out, got back in the SUV, and drove away. So what? Seraphina said. Watch what happens next, Margaret said. The timestamp jumped to yesterday morning. 6:47 a.m. A different vehicle pulled up. A white van with no markings. 3 men got out. One of them was holding what looked like a large bag. No, not a bag. A person. The footage was too grainy to see details, but Seraphina could make out dark hair, slim build, women's clothing. Helena. They carried her into the warehouse. That's her, Seraphina breathed. That's where she is. We think so, Margaret said. The warehouse is owned by a shell corporation that traces back to one of Damian's offshore accounts. We've had SWAT on standby for the past 30 minutes. We just needed to be absolutely certain before we moved in. Why are you showing me this? Seraphina asked. Because you need to see that we're not giving up, Margaret said. And because I need you to trust me for 5 more hours. Can you do that? Seraphina looked in the frozen image on the tablet screen. The warehouse. The white van. the men carrying Helena inside. What if you're wrong? She asked. What if it's not her? What if you raid the warehouse and she's somewhere else and Damian? Then we keep looking, Margaret said. But I don't think I'm wrong. Seraphina wanted to believe her. God, she wanted to believe her. But every time she trusted someone, every time she let herself hope things would work out, she ended up disappointed. Damian had taught her that. 8 years of false promises. 8 years of believe me, trust me, I love you. 8 years of discovering that every word out of his mouth was a carefully constructed lie designed to keep her under his control. I can't, Seraphina said. I can't risk her life on the hope that you might be right. Then you're giving him exactly what he wants, Margaret said. I don't care. Yes, you do, Margaret said. Otherwise, you would have taken the $10 million and disappeared. Otherwise, you wouldn't have spent 6 months gathering evidence. Otherwise, you wouldn't have walked into that ballroom and exposed him in front of everyone he'd ever lied to. You care, Seraphina. You care about justice. You care about stopping him. You care about making sure he never does this to anyone else. I also care about Helena not dying because I was too stubborn to save her. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Then she said, She wouldn't want you to do this. What? Helena Ward. I've known her for 10 years. She's the toughest lawyer I've ever worked with. She's negotiated with mob bosses and cartel leaders and corporate executives who make Damian Crow look like an amateur. And I promise you, right now, tied to a chair in that warehouse, she's telling herself that you better not cave, that you better not let this monster win because of her. Seraphina's eyes burned. Give me 5 hours, Margaret said. If we don't have her out by then, I'll drive you to my office myself and watch you sign whatever paperwork Damian wants. But please, trust me for 5 more hours. Seraphina looked at Monica. Monica nodded slightly. She looked at Vivian. Vivian was crying again, but she said, She's right. Seraphina closed her eyes. Every instinct she had was screaming at her to protect Helena, to give Damian what he wanted, to end this nightmare before someone died because of her. But Margaret was right too. Helena wouldn't want this. Okay, Seraphina whispered. 5 hours, Mocha. 4 hours and 37 minutes later, Seraphina's phone rang. Margaret. She answered. We have her. Seraphina's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the floor. Is she alive? Yes, beaten up pretty badly. She's on her way to Mount Sinai now, but she's alive and she's conscious, and she asked about you. Seraphina started crying, full-body sobs that she couldn't control. Monica knelt beside her, arm around her shoulders. Vivian was crying too. Thank you, Seraphina managed to say. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The men who took her are in custody, Margaret continued. They're already talking, trying to cut deals. One of them confirmed that Damian ordered the kidnapping from inside federal holding. That's conspiracy to commit kidnapping, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and about 6 other charges. What about Damian? He's being moved to a higher security facility tonight, Margaret said. No phone access, no visitors except his lawyers. And his lawyers are about to have a very bad week explaining how their client orchestrated a felony while in federal custody. Seraphina wiped her face. Can I see Helena? She specifically asked for you, Margaret said. I'll have an agent pick you up in 20 minutes. Helena was in a private room on the 4th floor with 2 federal agents stationed outside her door. She looked like she'd gone 10 rounds with a professional boxer and lost every single one, both eyes blackened, split lip, bandages on her arms. But when Seraphina walked in, she smiled. You look terrible, Helena said. Her voice was rough, probably from screaming. You look worse, Seraphina said, moving to the side of the bed. Fair. Helena tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. She winced. Broken rib, maybe 2. They're still figuring out the full damage. I'm sorry, Seraphina said. This is my fault. If I hadn't hired you... Stop, Helena said. I knew exactly what I was signing up for when I took your case. I've represented clients who've gone up against dangerous people before. This isn't my first rodeo. He kidnapped you because of me. He kidnapped me because he's a sociopathic criminal who thought he could intimidate you into destroying the case against him, Helena said. That's on him, not you. Seraphina sat down in the chair beside the bed. Were you scared? Terrified, Helena said, but also really pissed off. You know what I kept thinking about while I was tied to that chair? What? That I'd spent 30 years building a career as the best divorce attorney in Manhattan, and some arrogant mob boss thought he could make me disappear like I was nothing, like I was just another obstacle in his way. Helena's eyes hardened despite the bruising. That pissed me off more than being kidnapped. Did they hurt you badly? They tried to scare me, Helena said. Asked me questions about you, about the case, about what evidence we'd gathered. I told them I was a lawyer and I wasn't telling them shit without a court order, so they hit me a few times. Nothing I won't recover from. Helena, I'm fine, Helena said firmly. Or I will be. The doctors say I'll be here for a few days, then outpatient physical therapy, then back to work, which is good because we have a divorce to finalize. Seraphina stared at her. You're still going to represent me? Hell yes I am, Helena said. You think I'm going to let Damian Crow scare me off my biggest case? No way. We're taking him for everything he's got, or everything the federal government doesn't seize first. I thought, Seraphina's voice cracked. I thought about giving him what he wanted. I was going to withdraw my cooperation. I know, Helena said. Margaret told me. She also told me you didn't, that you trusted her to find me. That took guts. I was terrified. Good, Helena said. Fear means you understand how serious this is. Fear keeps you sharp. She reached out and took Seraphina's hand. Her grip was weak but steady. But don't let fear make your decisions. That's what Damian wants. He wants you scared and compliant and willing to do whatever he says to make the fear stop. Don't give him that. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You walked into a ballroom full of Manhattan's elite and exposed your husband as a fraud in front of 300 witnesses, Helena said. You're strong enough. A nurse came in to check Helena's vitals. Seraphina stood to leave, but Helena held on to her hand. Thank you, Helena said, for not giving up. Thank you for not dying, Seraphina said. Helena smiled. I'll try to make that a habit. Outside the hospital, Monica was waiting with the car. Vivian had gone back to her own apartment finally, promising to call if she remembered anything else about Damian that might help the case. The sun was setting over Manhattan, painting the buildings in shades of orange and gold that made the city look almost beautiful. Seraphina got in the back seat and closed her eyes. You should eat something, Monica said. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten in 20 hours. I'll eat later. Monica pulled into traffic. They drove in silence for a while. Then Monica said, You did good today. Seraphina opened her eyes. I almost destroyed everything. But you didn't, Monica said. You held on long enough for the good guys to win. That counts for something. Does it? Yes, Monica said firmly. It means you're not giving up. It means he hasn't broken you, and that terrifies him more than any federal charges ever could. Seraphina looked out the window at Manhattan sliding past. Millions of people going about their lives, having dinner, going to movies, fighting with their partners, falling in love, living normal existences that didn't involve ex-husbands orchestrating kidnappings from federal prison cells. She wanted that. God, she wanted that so badly, but she wasn't sure she'd ever have it again. Her phone buzzed, another unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but some self-destructive part of her needed to know. Hello? Congratulations. Damian's voice. Still calm. Still conversational, like he was complimenting her choice of restaurant. You got your lawyer back. That must feel good. How are you calling me? Does it matter? He asked. The point is, you won this round. You trusted the federal prosecutor, and she came through for you. Helena's alive. I'm facing additional charges. You should be celebrating. What do you want, Damian? I want you to understand something, he said. His voice dropped lower, more intimate. The tone he used to use late at night when they were alone together. This isn't over, not even close. You think you've won because they found Helena? Because they're adding charges? Seraphina, I've been playing this game a lot longer than you have, and I always win eventually. You're in federal custody facing decades in prison. For now, he said. But trials take years. Appeals take longer. And I'm a patient man. Sooner or later, people forget. Witnesses disappear. Evidence gets lost. And when that happens, I'll still be here, waiting. Is that a threat? It's a promise, Damian said. You started this war, but I'm going to finish it. The line went dead. Seraphina sat in the back of Monica's car, holding her phone, and realized something fundamental had shifted inside her. She wasn't scared anymore. She was angry, furious. For 8 years, she'd let Damian control her life. For 6 months, she'd been afraid of him. For the past 24 hours, she'd been paralyzed by the possibility that he'd hurt someone she cared about. But now Helena was safe. The federal case was stronger than ever. Damian was locked up with new charges being filed daily. And he was still trying to control her, still trying to make her afraid, still trying to convince her that he held all the power. Well, fuck that. Monica, she said. Yeah? I need you to do something for me. What? I need you to find out everything you can about Damian's business operations, Seraphina said. Every property, every account, every person who's ever worked for him, every deal he's ever made, every lie he's ever told. I want to know everything. Monica glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Margaret's people are already doing that. I want my own investigation, Seraphina said, independent from the federal case. Because if Damian thinks he can drag this out for years and wait for people to forget, I'm going to make sure no one ever forgets. I'm going to document every single thing he's ever done. And when his trial finally happens, I'm going to be there. Every day. In the front row. Making sure the jury sees exactly who he is. Monica was quiet for a moment, then she smiled. Okay. Okay? Okay, Monica said. Let's burn his empire to the ground. 2 days later, a federal grand jury handed down a superseding indictment against Damian Crowe. Racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, witness tampering, kidnapping, obstruction of justice, 37 counts total. If convicted on all charges, he'd spend the rest of his life in federal prison. The news broke at 3 p.m. on a Thursday. By 3:30, Seraphina's phone was exploding with interview requests. By 4, news vans were parked outside her building. By 5, her face was on every major news website in the country. She ignored all of it. Instead, she sat in her apartment with Helena, who'd checked herself out of the hospital against medical advice. Monica, Margaret, and surprisingly, Vivian, and they went through every piece of evidence they had against Damian. Financial records going back 15 years. Property deeds in 3 countries. Testimony from former associates who'd finally agreed to talk. Documentation of offshore accounts, shell corporations, and real estate holdings worth over $500 million. It's going to take months to sort through all of this, Margaret said, looking at the documents spread across Seraphina's kitchen table. Then we take months, Seraphina said. The trial probably won't start for at least a year, Margaret warned. Maybe longer. His lawyers will file every motion they can think of to delay things. You need to be prepared for this to drag on. I'm prepared, Seraphina said. Helena looked at her. Are you sure? Because once this indictment is public, once the trial process starts, you're going to be under a microscope. Every decision you've ever made, every relationship you've ever had, every time you signed a document for Damian without reading it carefully. The defense is going to come after you hard. They're going to try to paint you as a co-conspirator who turned on him when the marriage fell apart. Let them try, Seraphina said. They're going to dig up everything, Helena continued. That time you got arrested for shoplifting when you were 19, the credit card debt you had before you married him, every embarrassing photo, every bad decision, everything you've ever wanted to keep private is going to end up in court documents. I don't care. You say that now. I mean it, Seraphina said. She looked around at the women who'd spent the past week fighting for her. For 8 years I let Damian make me feel like I had to be perfect, like I had to hide every flaw, every mistake, every moment of being human. I'm done with that. If his lawyers want to drag me through the mud, fine. At least everyone will know the truth. Vivian spoke up for the first time in an hour. They're going to come after me too. Everyone looked at her. I was married to him, Vivian said, even if it wasn't legal, even if he lied to me. They're going to ask what I knew. When I knew it, whether I benefited from his criminal activity. Her voice shook. I lived in his penthouse. I wore jewelry he bought me. I went to parties with people who were part of his organization. The defense is going to say I had to have known something. Did you? Margaret asked. Not accusatory, just direct. No, Vivian said. I swear I didn't, but I'm not sure anyone's going to believe me. I believe you, Seraphina said. Vivian looked at her, surprised. I was married to him for 8 years, and I spent most of that time not wanting to know what he really did, Seraphina said. It's easy to not see things when you love someone, when you trust them, when you've built your entire life around the version of them they want you to see. That's what he counted on, Helena said, with both of you. He chose women who would trust him, who wouldn't ask too many questions, who would accept his explanations and move on. Well, he fucked up, Monica said, because both of you are sitting here right now working together to take him down. Seraphina looked at Vivian. Are you sure you want to be part of this? You could walk away, file for annulment. Let the lawyers handle everything. You don't owe me anything. Yes, I do, Vivian said. He lied to me about you, told me you were dead, made me believe I was building a life with a man who'd lost the love of his life, and the whole time you were alive, and he'd just... She stopped. I need to make that right, however I can. Then we do this together, Seraphina said. Margaret looked between them. You understand what you're signing up for? This is going to get ugly. The defense is going to try to pit you against each other. They're going to argue that you're both scorned women seeking revenge, that your testimony is tainted by emotion and spite. Let them argue that, Seraphina said. The jury can decide whether we're telling the truth. Okay. 1 week later, federal prosecutors scheduled a preliminary hearing to address Damian's bail status following the superseding indictment. Helena convinced Seraphina to attend. You don't have to testify, she said, but you should be there. Let him see that you're not hiding, that you're not afraid of him anymore. So Seraphina went. The courthouse was a zoo. Reporters, camera crews, protesters, people who'd been victims of Damian's organization and wanted to see justice. Supporters of Damian who believed he was being railroaded by an overzealous prosecutor. The crowd was so dense that Monica had to physically clear a path for Seraphina to get inside. The courtroom itself was packed. Seraphina sat in the second row with Helena on one side and Vivian on the other. Margaret was at the prosecutor's table with 2 other attorneys surrounded by boxes of evidence. Damian's legal team, 5 lawyers from one of Manhattan's most expensive firms, sat at the defense table looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. And then they brought Damian in. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of him, ankle shackles that made him shuffle when he walked. 2 federal marshals flanking him. He looked smaller, somehow, diminished. The man who'd commanded every room he entered now looked like what he was, a prisoner facing life behind bars. But when he saw Seraphina, he smiled. Not a friendly smile, not a sad smile. Something cold and knowing that made her skin crawl. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The hearing began. For the next hour, Seraphina listened to lawyers argue about whether Damian Crowe should remain in federal custody or be released on bail pending trial. The defense argued that he wasn't a flight risk, that he had ties to the community, that he deserved the presumption of innocence. Margaret countered with evidence of offshore accounts, foreign properties, and connections to organized crime in 3 countries. She played excerpts from the video he'd sent of Helena tied to a chair. She submitted the recording of him attempting to bribe Seraphina at Madison Square Park. The judge listened to everything without expression. Finally, she spoke. Mr. Crowe, I've reviewed the government's evidence. I've reviewed your attorney's arguments, and I've come to the conclusion that you pose an extraordinary danger to the community and to potential witnesses in this case. Your alleged actions while in federal custody, orchestrating a kidnapping, threatening witnesses, attempting to obstruct justice, demonstrate a flagrant disregard for the law and for this court. Accordingly, bail is denied. You will remain in federal custody pending trial. Damian's lawyers immediately stood to object. The judge cut them off. Save it for the appellate court, counselors. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down. Damian turned in his chair, looked directly at Seraphina, mouthed 2 words. Not over. Then the marshals led him away. Seraphina sat in the courtroom for a long time after everyone else had left. Helena and Vivian waited patiently. Monica stood by the door, keeping watch. Finally, Seraphina stood. You okay? Helena asked. No, Seraphina said honestly. But I will be. They walked out of the courthouse together. The crowd had thinned, but there were still reporters waiting. Questions came from every direction. Ms. Vale, how do you feel about the judge's decision? Are you afraid of retaliation? Do you regret exposing your husband? What do you say to people who call you a scorned wife seeking revenge? Seraphina stopped walking. Monica tensed, ready to pull her away. But Seraphina turned to face the cameras. I'm not a scorned wife, she said. Her voice was steady, clear. I'm a woman who spent 8 years married to a criminal, who was lied to, manipulated, and eventually erased when I was no longer useful. I'm here today because I want other women to know that if someone is controlling you, isolating you, making you doubt your own reality, that's not love. That's abuse. And you don't have to accept it. She paused. Cameras clicked. Reporters scribbled notes. Damian Crow built an empire on lies and violence, Seraphina continued. He hurt people. He destroyed families. And he did it all while pretending to be a respectable businessman and loving husband. I'm going to spend however long it takes making sure everyone knows the truth about who he really is. Not because I'm seeking revenge, but because he doesn't get to win. Not this time. She turned and walked away. Behind her, the reporters erupted with more questions. But Seraphina didn't look back. That night, alone in her apartment, Seraphina received an email from an address she didn't recognize. The subject line was empty. She almost deleted it, almost didn't click. But something made her open it. A single sentence. I have information about what Damian did to his first wife. We need to talk. Seraphina stared at the screen. First wife. She'd never heard Damian mention a first wife. In 8 years of marriage, he'd never said anything about being married before. She hit reply. Typed, "Who is this?" Sent it. The response came back in less than a minute. Someone who wants to see him pay for what he did. Meet me tomorrow, corner of Bleecker and McDougal, 2 p.m. Come alone. Seraphina looked at her phone. She should call Monica, should call Helena, should call Margaret and let the federal prosecutors handle this. But something in her gut told her this was different. This was personal. She typed, I'll be there. Hit send. And realized she'd just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Whatever she was about to learn about Damian's past, it was going to change everything. And there would be no going back. Seraphina didn't tell anyone about the email. Not Monica, not Helena, not Margaret Zhao. She knew what they'd say. That it was a trap. That someone connected to Damian was trying to lure her into a vulnerable position. That she was being reckless and stupid and throwing away everything they'd fought for. They'd be right. But she went anyway. Bleecker and McDougal at 2 in the afternoon was crowded with NYU students and tourists, and people who'd never heard of Damian Crow and didn't care about federal racketeering cases. Seraphina stood on the corner wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap pulled low, feeling ridiculous and exposed at the same time. She'd left her phone at the apartment, Monica could track it, and told herself she'd only stay 5 minutes, just long enough to see who showed up. A woman approached from the west side of the street. Late 50s, maybe 60. Gray hair cut short, wearing jeans and a leather jacket that looked like it had been around since the 80s. She moved with the careful deliberation of someone whose body had taken damage over the years and learned to compensate. When she got closer, Seraphina could see a scar running from her left temple down to her jaw. Old, faded, but still visible. The woman stopped 3 feet away. Seraphina Vale? Who are you? My name is Caroline Hendricks. She glanced around the crowded corner. Can we go somewhere more private? No. Caroline studied her for a moment. You're smart not to trust me. But I'm not working for Damian. I haven't spoken to him in 23 years, and I'd be happy if I never spoke to him again. You said you had information about his first wife. I do. Caroline's expression hardened. Because I am his first wife. Seraphina's stomach dropped. That's not possible. He would have told me. He told you a lot of things, Caroline interrupted. Most of them were lies. The marriage, the business, the man you thought you knew, all of it was carefully constructed bullshit designed to keep you from seeing what he really is. I know what he is, Seraphina said. He's a criminal. He's facing federal charges. I'm the one who exposed him. You exposed his business, Caroline said. Not him, not really. You have no idea what he's capable of. She pulled an envelope from her jacket pocket and held it out. This is everything I have. Documents, photos, medical records, police reports that mysteriously disappeared. It's the story of what Damian Crow did to me when I tried to leave him. Seraphina didn't take the envelope. Why now? If you have evidence against him, why wait until now? Because I've been living under a different name in Montana for 23 years, Caroline said. Because I was terrified that if he found me, he'd finish what he started. But then I saw you on the news, saw you walk into that ballroom and call him out in front of everyone. And I realized if you were brave enough to fight him, maybe I could finally stop running. She pushed the envelope towards Seraphina again. This time Seraphina took it. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from here, Caroline said. I'll be there for the next hour if you want to talk after you've looked at what's inside. If you don't, that's fine. But I thought you should know who you're really dealing with. She turned and walked away before Seraphina could respond. Seraphina stood on the corner holding the envelope. It was thick, heavy. Whatever was inside represented years of documentation. She could feel the weight of it in her hands. She should take it straight to Margaret Zhao. Should let the federal prosecutors examine it as evidence. But she didn't. Instead, she walked to Washington Square Park, found a bench in a quiet corner, and opened the envelope. Inside were photocopies of documents. Marriage certificate dated 1999, divorce papers dated 2002. Medical records from 3 different hospital visits, police reports, restraining order, photos. The photos made her hands shake. Caroline Hendricks at 25, smiling in a wedding dress beside a younger Damian Crow. Caroline at 27 with her arm in a cast. Caroline at 28 with the left side of her face swollen and bruised. The final photo showed Caroline in a hospital bed, unconscious, with bandages covering most of her head and face. The medical report clipped to it detailed skull fracture, internal bleeding, broken ribs, and a notation that the injuries were consistent with assault by blunt object. The police report said Caroline had fallen down the stairs in her home. The restraining order she'd filed 2 weeks before the fall told a different story. There was a handwritten letter on the last page. Caroline's handwriting, shaky and uneven. I tried to leave him in 2002. Filed for divorce. Told him I couldn't live with what he was becoming. He begged me to stay. Promised he'd change. When I refused, he pushed me down 2 flights of stairs in our townhouse and told the paramedics I'd been drinking. I was in a coma for 6 days. When I woke up, he was there beside my hospital bed, crying, telling me how much he loved me. The police believed his story. Everyone believed his story. I was the unstable wife with a drinking problem. He was the devoted husband keeping vigil. When I got out of the hospital, I ran. Changed my name. Moved as far from New York as I could get. I've spent 23 years looking over my shoulder, terrified he'd find me. But I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of him getting away with everything he's done. If you're reading this, it means you're fighting him too. Be careful. He doesn't just destroy the women who leave him, he erases them. And he's very good at making it look like an accident. Seraphina read the letter 3 times. Then she gathered all the documents, put them back in the envelope, and walked to the coffee shop where Caroline was waiting. Caroline was sitting at a table in the back, drinking tea that had gone cold. When she saw Seraphina, something in her expression shifted. Relief, maybe. Or resignation. Seraphina sat down across from her, put the envelope on the table between them. How did you find me? She asked. I've been following your case online, Caroline said. When I saw your name connected to Damian's arrest, I hired a private investigator to confirm you were legitimate, that you weren't working for him. Once I was sure, I reached out. The FBI needs to see this. I know, Caroline said. That's why I'm giving it to you. I can't walk into a federal building and testify. I legally don't exist anymore. Caroline Hendricks died in 2003. The woman I am now has a different social security number, different driver's license, different life. If I surface, if I admit who I really was, I lose everything I've built. But this is evidence, Seraphina said. Evidence that he's done this before, that he has a pattern of violence against women. The prosecutor could use this. Only if I'm willing to testify, Caroline said. And I'm not. I can't. Her voice cracked. I know that makes me a coward. I know you're risking your life to fight him, and I'm hiding in Montana. But Seraphina, you don't understand what he did to me, what he's capable of. I think I do. No, Caroline said flatly. You don't. You're fighting him in court, with lawyers and federal prosecutors and evidence. I tried that. I filed police reports, got a restraining order, hired lawyers, and he still nearly killed me. He stood beside my hospital bed and told me that if I ever tried to leave again, next time I wouldn't wake up. And I believed him. Seraphina looked at this woman who'd spent 23 years in hiding, who'd given up her entire identity to escape the man Seraphina had married. "Did you love him?" she asked. Caroline was quiet for a long moment. "Yes. God help me. Yes. That's the part that still fucks me up. Even after everything he did, part of me still remembers the man I married, the man who made me laugh, who told me I was beautiful, who promised we'd build a life together." She looked up, and her eyes were wet. But that man never existed. He was always a monster. He just knew how to hide it. "How long were you married?" 3 years. The first year was perfect. He was charming, successful, attentive, everything I thought I wanted. The second year, things started changing. He'd disappear for days, come home with blood on his clothes, and tell me it was nothing. Men would come to the house at all hours. I started realizing the business he claimed to run wasn't what he said it was. "What did you do?" "I asked questions," Caroline said. "That was my first mistake. Damian doesn't like questions. He told me to stay out of his business, to trust him, to be a good wife and stop being paranoid. So I tried. I really tried. But the third year, I couldn't ignore it anymore. People he did business with started disappearing. I'd see news reports about bodies found in the Hudson, and I'd recognize the names. Men who'd been to our house, men Damian had argued with." Seraphina's hands were cold. "Did you go to the police?" "No," Caroline said. "I was too scared. So I told him I wanted a divorce, packed a bag, called my sister to pick me up, and that's when he pushed me down the stairs." "How did you survive?" "Luck," Caroline said. "A neighbor heard me screaming and called 911. If the ambulance had taken 5 more minutes, I would have bled out in our foyer. As it was, I woke up 6 days later with a traumatic brain injury and no memory of the fall. Damian was the only witness. He told everyone I'd been drinking, that I'd stumbled. The police found an open bottle of wine in the kitchen and closed the case." "But you remembered eventually." "Pieces," Caroline said. "It took months. I'd get flashes. His face, his hands on my back, the feeling of falling. My therapist said the memories might never fully return, but I remembered enough to know I had to disappear or he'd kill me." Seraphina felt sick. "How did you do it? Change your identity?" "I had help," Caroline said. "A lawyer who specialized in helping abuse victims escape. She knew people who could create new documentation. It cost everything I had saved, but it was worth it. I moved to Montana, found work as a bookkeeper, lived quietly, never used social media, never contacted anyone from my old life. And I survived. For 23 years. For 23 years, Caroline repeated, until I saw you on the news and realized I couldn't stay silent anymore." Seraphina looked at the envelope. This evidence could change everything. The prosecution could argue a pattern of domestic violence, a history of attempting to murder wives who tried to leave him. It makes what he did to me look like the second verse of a song he's been singing his whole life, Caroline finished. "I know, that's why I'm giving it to you. But Seraphina, listen to me. If you use this, if you take this to the prosecutor, Damian will find out I'm still alive, and he will come after me. He's in federal custody." "He orchestrated a kidnapping from federal custody," Caroline said. "You think he can't orchestrate a murder from the same place?" She wasn't wrong. Seraphina stared at the envelope. Inside was evidence that could strengthen the case against Damian exponentially. Proof that he'd been a violent predator long before he married her. Testimony from a previous victim that would corroborate everything she was saying about his pattern of abuse and control. But using that evidence would put Caroline in danger, would potentially get her killed. "What do you want me to do?" Seraphina asked. "I don't know," Caroline said. "That's why I came to you instead of going directly to the FBI. I wanted you to decide. You're the one fighting him. You're the one who's going to have to live with whatever happens next. I'll support whatever choice you make. Even if it means staying silent?" "Even then," Caroline said. "I've been silent for 23 years. I can be silent for 23 more if that's what keeps me alive." Seraphina picked up the envelope, felt the weight of all those documents, all that pain, all those years of running and hiding. "I need to think about this," she said. Take your time, Caroline said. She pulled a card from her pocket and slid it across the table, a phone number handwritten on blank cardstock. That's a burner. I'll keep it for the next month. If you decide to use the evidence, call me first. Give me a head start to disappear again. She stood to leave. Caroline, Seraphina said. Thank you for trusting me with this. Caroline looked at her for a long moment. You remind me of myself at your age, before he broke me. Don't let him break you too. Then she walked out of the coffee shop and disappeared into the Manhattan afternoon. Seraphina made it back to her apartment at 4:30. Monica was pacing in the living room, phone pressed to her ear, talking to someone in rapid Spanish. When she saw Seraphina, relief and fury crossed her face in equal measure. Where the hell have you been? She demanded, hanging up. You left your phone here. You didn't tell anyone where you were going. I've been calling hospitals. I'm sorry, Seraphina said. I had something I needed to do. What something? Seraphina held up the envelope. Monica's eyes narrowed. What's that? Evidence. Maybe. I don't know yet. Evidence of what? Damian's first marriage, Seraphina said. She moved to the kitchen table and spread the documents out. He was married before me, to a woman named Caroline Hendricks, and he tried to kill her when she tried to leave him. Monica stared at the documents, the photos, the medical records. Jesus Christ. She's been in hiding for 23 years, Seraphina continued, living under a false identity. She came forward because she saw me on the news and thought I should know what I'm really dealing with. Where is she now? I don't know. She didn't tell me. Smart. Monica picked up one of the medical reports. Read it. Her jaw tightened. This needs to go to Margaret immediately. I know. So why are you hesitating? Because if I give this to the prosecutor, Damian will find out Caroline is still alive, Seraphina said. And he'll send someone after her. She's been safe for 23 years. The second I use this evidence, that safety disappears. Monica set down the report. That's not your responsibility. Yes, it is, Seraphina said. She gave this to me. She trusted me to make the right choice. If I get her killed, if you don't use this evidence, Damian might walk, Monica interrupted. His lawyers will argue that you're a scorned wife making accusations, that there's no pattern, that this was an isolated case of a marriage falling apart. But if there's a previous victim, if there's documentation that he did this before, that changes everything. I know. So what's the problem? The problem is I don't want another woman's death on my conscience, Seraphina said. Rachel Moreno's husband is already dead because he threatened Damian. How many more people have to die before this is over? Monica was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'll call Margaret. Set up a meeting. You can explain the situation and she can advise on how to protect Caroline if you decide to use the evidence. And if there's no way to protect her, then you make a choice, Monica said. Between justice and safety. Between convicting a monster and protecting a victim. There's no good answer, Seraphina. There's just whatever decision you can live with. Pasit. The meeting with Margaret happened that night in a conference room at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Margaret, Helena, two federal agents Seraphina didn't recognize, and Monica. Everyone crowded around the table while Seraphina explained about Caroline Hendricks, the envelope, and the evidence of Damian's first marriage. Margaret went through the documents methodically, read every page, studied every photo. When she finished, she looked up with an expression Seraphina couldn't read. This is devastating, Margaret said. For his defense, I mean. If we can put this in front of a jury, if we can show a clear pattern of escalating violence against romantic partners, it obliterates any claim that his treatment of you was aberrant behavior or a misunderstanding. But, Seraphina prompted. But, Margaret continued, we can't use it without Caroline Hendricks' testimony. The documents alone aren't enough. We need her to authenticate them, to explain what happened, to tell her story to the jury. She won't do that, Seraphina said. She's been in hiding for 23 years. She's terrified of him. Can we find her? One of the agents asked. If we have her real name, we can... No, Seraphina said sharply. She came to me in confidence. She trusted me. I'm not going to have federal agents track her down and force her to testify. No one's forcing anyone, Margaret said. But Seraphina, you need to understand what you're giving up. This evidence could be the difference between Damian spending 45 years in prison and spending 10 with good behavior. It could be the difference between conviction and acquittal on the most serious charges. I understand that. Do you? Margaret leaned forward. Because right now we have a strong case, but strong isn't the same as airtight. His lawyers are good. They're going to attack every piece of evidence. They're going to argue that the financial records are ambiguous, that the kidnapping was orchestrated by associates without his direct knowledge, that the witness tampering recording was taken out of context. Your testimony is crucial, but it's also easy to dismiss as a bitter ex-wife seeking revenge. If we have a second victim, if we can show this is who he is, that becomes much harder to dismiss. What if we offered Caroline witness protection? Helena suggested. Full relocation, new identity backed by federal marshals instead of forged documents, 24-hour security until the trial is over. That could work, Margaret said. If she's willing. She won't be, Seraphina said. She spent 23 years building a new life. She's not going to throw that away. Then we work with what we have, Margaret said. And we accept that the case is weaker without her testimony. How much weaker? Seraphina asked. Margaret hesitated. Honestly, I'd say we have about a 70% chance of conviction on the major charges without Caroline's testimony. With it, 95%. The number sat heavy in the room. So if I don't convince Caroline to come forward, Seraphina said slowly, there's a 1 in 3 chance Damian walks free. Not walks free, Margaret corrected. He'll still face consequences. Probation, maybe some jail time on lesser charges. But the RICO charges, the conspiracy to commit murder, the big sentences that would keep him locked up for life, those become much harder to prove. Seraphina looked at the documents spread across the table, Caroline's face in those hospital photos, the police report that claimed she'd fallen down the stairs drunk. She thought about Helena tied to a chair in a warehouse. She thought about Rachel Moreno's daughters. She thought about Vivian, who'd spent months married to a man who'd convinced her his previous wife was dead. And she thought about herself, standing in that ballroom in a crimson dress, raising her hand to show a wedding ring while Damian's world collapsed around him. I need to talk to Caroline, she said. She called the number on the card at midnight. Caroline answered on the third ring. Hello? It's Seraphina. Silence. Then, did you take the evidence to the prosecutor? Yes. And? And they want you to testify, Seraphina said. They said the documents aren't enough on their own. They need you to authenticate them, to tell your story. I can't do that. I know. That's not why I'm calling. Seraphina took a breath. I'm calling because I want you to know that whatever you decide, I support it. You've already survived him once. You don't owe anyone anything. If you want to stay hidden in Montana and never think about Damian Crowe again, that's your right. I won't judge you for it. Caroline was quiet for a long time. Then, but if you don't testify, there's a significant chance he'll get a reduced sentence. He might serve 10 years instead of 45. He might get probation. And if that happens, Seraphina's voice caught. If that happens, he'll come after me, and after everyone who helped me, and probably after you once he has the resources and freedom to find you. I know, Caroline whispered. The prosecutor offered witness protection, full federal relocation, new identity, security until the trial is over. It's not perfect, but it's better than forged documents and hope. It's also permanent, Caroline said. Once I surface, once I testify, I can never go back to the life I've built, the friends I've made, the job I have, the person I've become over the past 23 years. All of that disappears. Yes, Seraphina said. It does. So you're asking me to sacrifice everything I've built to help you convict a man who already destroyed my life once? No, Seraphina said. I'm asking you to help me stop him from destroying anyone else's life. But I'm also telling you that if you say no, I understand. This isn't your fight anymore. You already escaped. You already survived. You don't have to be brave again. Caroline's breathing was shaky on the other end of the line. Can I think about it? Of course. How long do I have? The trial starts in 6 months, Seraphina said. But the prosecutor needs to know soon if you're going to testify. They need time to prepare, to build the case around your testimony. I'll call you in 3 days, Caroline said, with an answer. Okay. Seraphina? Yeah? Are you scared? Caroline asked, of testifying against him. Terrified, Seraphina admitted. Good, Caroline said. Fear keeps you sharp, keeps you careful. Don't lose that. She hung up. Seraphina sat in her dark apartment holding the burner phone and wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. 3 days later, Caroline didn't call. 4 days. 5 days. A week. Seraphina called the number repeatedly. It went straight to voicemail. She left messages. No response. She's not coming, Helena said on day 8. They were in Helena's office, reviewing discovery documents for the trial. You need to accept that and move forward. Something's wrong, Seraphina said. Or she made a choice, Helena countered. She decided the risk wasn't worth it. That's her right. She said 3 days. She promised she'd call in 3 days. People change their minds. Seraphina pulled out her phone, dialed Caroline's number again. Voicemail. She hung up without leaving another message. I'm going to Montana, she said. Helena looked up sharply. What? I'm going to find her. Make sure she's okay. Seraphina, you don't even know where in Montana she is. It's a big state. I'll figure it out. This is insane, Helena said. You have a federal trial in 5 months. You can't just disappear to Montana to track down a witness who clearly doesn't want to be found. I have to know she's okay. Why? Helena's voice sharpened. Why do you care so much about a woman you met once? Because she's me, Seraphina said. 23 years in the future, still running, still scared, still letting Damian control her life even though he's not physically there. If I don't at least try to find her, try to help her, then what's the point of any of this? Helena stared at her for a long moment. Then she sighed. Monica's going with you. I can go alone? Monica goes or you don't go at all, Helena said firmly. Those are the terms. They flew to Billings, Montana, 2 days later. Monica had used her investigator contacts to narrow down the search. Caroline's new identity was listed as working for a small accounting firm in a town called Red Lodge, about 60 miles southwest of Billings. Population, 2,500. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone and strangers stood out. They rented a car and drove through landscape that looked like it belonged on a postcard. Mountains, pine forests, sky so big and blue it made New York feel claustrophobic by comparison. Red Lodge was exactly what Seraphina expected. Main Street lined with shops that sold hiking gear and local art, a diner, a bar, a post office. The accounting firm was in a converted house on the edge of town, white paint peeling, a sign out front that said Mountain View Financial Services. Monica parked across the street. You want me to come in with you? No, Seraphina said. If she's in there, if she sees both of us, she'll feel ambushed. Let me try alone first. She got out of the car and crossed the street. The front door was unlocked. Inside was a reception area that smelled like coffee and old carpet. A woman in her 40s sat behind a desk, typing on a computer that looked like it was from 2005. Can I help you? The woman asked. I'm looking for someone, Seraphina said. I was told she works here. Her name is, She stopped. She didn't know what name Caroline was using now. Actually, I have a photo. She pulled out her phone, showed the woman the photo from Caroline's wedding day. 25 years old, smiling, happy. The receptionist studied it. That's Diane. Diane? Diane Morrison. She works here. Or she did. The woman's expression shifted. She quit about a week ago. Didn't give notice. Just sent an email saying she was moving back east for family reasons and wouldn't be coming in. Seraphina's stomach dropped. Do you know where she went? No idea. She packed up her apartment and left. A couple of us went by to check on her, but the place was empty. Landlord said she paid through the end of the month and gave up the lease. Did she seem upset? Scared? The receptionist frowned. Why are you asking? I'm a friend, Seraphina lied. I've been trying to reach her and she's not answering her phone. I'm worried something happened. Well, if something did, she didn't tell anyone here. Diane kept to herself mostly. Nice enough, but private. Never talked about her past. Never mentioned family back east. The woman paused. Actually, that's what was weird. In the email she said she was moving for family reasons, but in 5 years of working here, she never once mentioned having family anywhere. Seraphina felt cold spreading through her chest. When did you say she left? Email came through 8 days ago, Saturday morning. Haven't seen her since. 8 days ago. The same day Caroline was supposed to call Seraphina with her decision. Thank you, Seraphina said. She turned to leave. If you find her, the receptionist called, tell her we miss her. Tell her she's welcome back any time. Seraphina nodded and walked out. Monica was waiting by the car. Well, she's gone, Seraphina said. Quit her job 8 days ago, moved out of her apartment, disappeared. Shit. She was supposed to call me that day, Seraphina said. Her voice sounded distant, like it was coming from somewhere else. She promised she'd call in 3 days. That was 8 days ago. Monica pulled out her phone, started making calls. 20 minutes later, she had information. There's no record of Caroline Hendricks or Diane Morrison flying out of Billings or any surrounding airport, Monica said. No train tickets, no bus tickets. I checked hospital admissions, police reports, nothing. She just vanished. Damian found her, Seraphina said. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Seraphina looked at Monica. He found her, and he either killed her or scared her enough that she ran again. Either way, she's gone, and it's my fault. This is not your fault. I told her to call me, Seraphina said. I gave her 3 days to think about testifying, and somehow during those 3 days, Damian figured out she was alive and tracked her down. How did he do that? How did he know? Monica didn't answer, because they both knew the answer. Someone had told him. They flew back to New York that night. Seraphina sat in her window seat and stared at the darkness outside. 30,000 feet above the country, surrounded by strangers, feeling more alone than she'd ever felt in her life. Caroline was gone, either dead or running again. And it was Seraphina's fault. She'd been so focused on building a case, on gathering evidence, on bringing Damian down that she hadn't considered the possibility that he'd find out about Caroline, that he'd learn she was still alive and go after her before she could testify. But how had he found out? Seraphina had only told Margaret, Helena, Monica, and the 2 federal agents in that conference room. None of them would betray her. She was certain of that. But someone had. Someone close to the case. Someone with access to information. Someone working for Damian. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Her blood turned to ice. She opened it. A photo. Caroline Hendricks. Or what was left of her. Seraphina's hand shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. She couldn't look away from the image, couldn't process what she was seeing. Another text appeared. I told you to drop the cooperation agreement. You didn't listen. This is what happens when you don't listen, Seraphina. Damian. Caroline thought she could hide from me for 23 years. She was wrong. Just like you're wrong if you think you can testify against me and survive. Another photo. This one showed a document. Seraphina zoomed in. It was a police report. From the FBI. Dated 3 days ago. Witness protection offer extended to Caroline Hendricks, alias Diane Morrison. Declined. And at the bottom, a notation. Information shared with defense counsel per discovery requirements. Seraphina couldn't breathe. The federal prosecutor's office had shared information about Caroline with Damian's lawyers. Standard procedure in a criminal trial. The defense had a right to know about potential witnesses, but by following standard procedure, they'd signed Caroline's death warrant. Damian's lawyers had told him Caroline was alive, and he'd had her killed. Another text. You have 1 chance left. Withdraw your cooperation. Refuse to testify. Or I start working through everyone you care about. Helena, Monica, Margaret, your sister in Philadelphia, that barista who remembers your coffee order, everyone. Seraphina looked at Monica sleeping in the seat beside her, exhausted from 2 days of traveling, trying to help find a woman who was already dead. She looked at the photo of Caroline's body one more time. Then she deleted the messages, turned off her phone, and made a decision. She didn't go back to her apartment in Chelsea. Instead, she had Monica drop her at a hotel in Midtown, paid cash for a room under a fake name, told Monica she needed space to think and she'd call in the morning. Monica didn't like it, but she didn't argue. Seraphina sat in the hotel room for 2 hours, staring at the wall, replaying every conversation she'd had with Margaret Zhao. Every meeting with the federal prosecutors, every piece of evidence they'd gathered. And she realized something terrible. She'd been so focused on fighting Damian that she'd walked directly into a trap. By cooperating with the FBI, by sharing Caroline's information, by trusting that the legal system would protect witnesses and victims, she'd handed Damian exactly what he needed to maintain control. He'd known about Helena before the kidnapping. He'd known about Caroline before her death. He knew about everyone close to Seraphina, which meant someone in the prosecutor's office was feeding him information, or someone close to the investigation was compromised, or the entire system was more corrupt than she'd imagined. She pulled out her phone, turned it back on, ignored the 17 missed calls from Monica and 3 from Helena, dialed a number she'd hoped she'd never have to call. It rang 4 times. "Seraphina," Damian's voice, warm, almost affectionate. "I've been waiting for you to call. We need to talk," she said. "I'm listening." "Not on the phone, face to face." "That's not possible," Damian said. "I'm in federal custody, remember? You put me here." "Then I'll visit you," Seraphina said. "Tomorrow. I'll tell the guards I'm your wife requesting visitation." "You're not my wife anymore." "Legally, I still am," she said. "The divorce hasn't been finalized, which means I have visitation rights." Damian was quiet for a moment. Then, "Why?" "Because you're right," Seraphina said. The words tasted like poison. "I can't win this. You've proven that. You killed Caroline. You kidnapped Helena. You've shown me that no matter how many lawyers I hire or how much evidence I gather, you're always 3 steps ahead. So I want to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "My survival," she said, "and the survival of everyone I care about. I'll withdraw my cooperation. I'll refuse to testify. I'll do whatever you want, but I need guarantees that you'll leave Helena alone, that you'll leave Monica alone, that you'll let me disappear and never come after me again." "And you think I'll agree to that?" "I think you want to win," Seraphina said. "And this is you winning. You get what you want, and I get to live." Everyone walks away. Damian laughed softly. "You've changed. You changed me." "Fair enough," he said. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Federal Holding Facility in Lower Manhattan. Tell the guards you're my wife. I'll make sure you're on the visitor list." "Okay?" "Seraphina?" "What?" "I'm proud of you," Damian said, "for finally understanding how this works, for finally accepting reality. It's about time." He hung up. Seraphina sat in the hotel room holding her phone and feeling something shift inside her chest. She'd spent 6 months fighting Damian. 6 months gathering evidence, exposing his crimes, building a case that was supposed to destroy him. And he'd won anyway. He'd killed Caroline. He'd terrorized Helena. He'd proven that no matter how hard Seraphina fought, he was always in control. She looked at herself in the mirror across the room. The woman staring back looked tired, broken. Nothing like the person who'd walked into that ballroom in a crimson dress 6 months ago. That woman had believed in justice. This woman knew better. She picked up her phone, dialed Monica. "Where are you?" Monica answered immediately. "I've been calling." "I'm fine," Seraphina said. "I just needed space." "What happened?" "Caroline's dead," Seraphina said flatly. "Damian had her killed. He sent me photos." "Jesus Christ." "I'm visiting him tomorrow," Seraphina continued, "at the Federal Holding Facility. I'm going to negotiate terms for withdrawing my cooperation." "What? No, absolutely not." "It's over, Monica," Seraphina said. "He's won. I can keep fighting and watch everyone I care about die, or I can accept defeat and maybe save a few lives. I'm choosing the latter." "This is insane. You can't just—" "I'll call you after," Seraphina said. "Don't try to stop me. Don't tell Margaret or Helena. Let me handle this my way." She hung up before Monica could argue. Then she turned off her phone, lay down on the hotel bed, and stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. She had 12 hours to decide if she was really going to surrender, or if there was one more move left to make, one more way to win, even if it meant destroying herself in the process. Seraphina didn't sleep. She lay on the hotel bed watching shadows crawl across the ceiling, her mind cycling through the same questions over and over until they became a kind of prayer. How had it come to this? How had 6 months of fighting led her right back to the place she'd started, powerless, afraid, trapped by a man who'd proven he could reach anyone, hurt anyone, destroy anyone who stood in his way. At 4 in the morning, she got up, took a shower that scalded her skin red, stood under the water until it ran cold, dressed in black jeans and a sweater that made her look smaller than she was. No makeup, hair pulled back. She wanted to look defeated, wanted Damian to see exactly what he'd done to her. At 7, she left the hotel, walked through Manhattan as the city woke up around her. Street cleaners, delivery trucks, people heading to jobs they hated, normal lives, normal problems. None of them knew that 6 blocks away a woman was walking toward a federal building to negotiate her surrender to the man who'd tried to erase her. She stopped at a bodega, bought coffee she didn't drink. The man behind the counter smiled and said something about the weather. She nodded, paid, left. Her phone had 17 more missed calls when she turned it on. Monica, Helena, Margaret Zhao, even Vivian, everyone trying to stop her from doing what she was about to do. She silenced them all. At 9:30, she stood outside the federal holding facility in Lower Manhattan, a gray concrete building that looked like it had been designed by someone who wanted to punish architecture itself. Guards at the entrance, metal detectors, security protocols that would strip search your soul if they could. She walked through the doors, showed her ID to the guard at the desk, said she was there to visit Damian Crow, that she was his wife. The guard checked a list, found her name, looked at her with an expression that might have been pity or might have been contempt. Hard to tell. "Sign in," he said. "Leave all personal belongings in a locker. You'll go through security screening and then you'll be escorted to the visitation room." She did everything he asked, moved through the process like someone drugged. Metal detector. Pat down by a female guard who was thorough and impersonal. Questions about why she was visiting. She said they needed to discuss personal matters. The guard didn't care. They walked her down a hallway that smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation, through 3 locked doors, into a room divided by reinforced glass partitions, individual booths with phones for communication. 5 other people were already there, talking to prisoners she couldn't see from her angle. "Booth 4, the guard said. "You have 30 minutes. She sat down. The plastic chair was bolted to the floor. The phone receiver felt greasy in her hand. She stared at the empty chair on the other side of the glass and tried to remember how to breathe. Then they brought Damian in. He looked thinner. Prison orange didn't suit him the way his $1,000 suits had. His hair was longer than he normally kept it, starting to gray at the temples in a way that would have been distinguished on the outside, but just looked tired in here. But his eyes were the same, sharp, calculating, completely aware of every advantage he held. He sat down, picked up the phone on his side, smiled. "Hello, Seraphina." She picked up her phone. "Hello, Damian? You look terrible. You killed Caroline." "I didn't kill anyone," he said. "Caroline Hendricks died in a car accident in Montana 3 days ago. Very tragic. Single-vehicle collision on a mountain road. Police think she fell asleep at the wheel." Seraphina's hands clenched around the phone. "You sent me photos." "Did I?" His smile widened. "I must have been mistaken. Perhaps I sent you photos of someone else. Easy to confuse people, especially women who look similar. You know how it is." "Stop." "Stop what?" "Playing games," Seraphina said. "I came here to negotiate. Let's negotiate." Damian leaned back in his chair, studied her through the glass. "What do you have to offer?" "My cooperation, or the lack of it. I withdraw from the federal case. I refuse to testify. I tell Margaret Zhao that I was coerced, that I lied, that everything I've said was motivated by revenge and anger over our divorce." "And in exchange?" "You leave everyone alone," Seraphina said. "Helena, Monica, Margaret, Vivian, everyone who helped me. You let them live their lives without looking over their shoulders. And you?" "I disappear," she said. "Leave New York, change my name. You never hear from me again." Damian was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. "That's your offer? That's what you think is a fair trade?" "It's what you wanted 6 months ago." "6 months ago, you hadn't humiliated me in front of 300 people," Damian said. His voice stayed pleasant, but something dark flickered behind his eyes. "6 months ago, you hadn't turned federal prosecutors loose on my entire organization. 6 months ago, you hadn't cost me $200 million in frozen assets. and another 300 million in business that evaporated when everyone realized I was being investigated. You're still alive. Barely, he said. Do you have any idea what it's like in here? The people I have to deal with? The threats I receive daily? I'm in protective custody because half the inmates in this facility would kill me for the reward my enemies are offering. I'm a target, Seraphina, and that's your fault. You did this to yourself. No, Damian said flatly. You did this. You declared war. You brought the fight to me. And now you want to negotiate a peace treaty like you hold any cards? You don't. You have nothing. I already proved that with Caroline. So what do you want? I want you to suffer, he said. Simple. Direct. No pretense. I want you to spend the rest of your life knowing that everyone you care about is in danger because of you. I want you to wake up every morning wondering if today is the day someone you love dies. I want you to understand what you took from me. Seraphina stared at him through the glass. This man she'd loved. This man she'd married. This man who'd once held her while she cried and promised he'd protect her from everything. You're a monster, she said quietly. I'm a businessman, Damian corrected. I just operate in a business where leverage is everything. And right now I have all the leverage. You have none. So no, Seraphina. I don't accept your offer. I don't accept any terms. You're going to testify at my trial because if you don't, the prosecutors will subpoena you and force you to testify anyway. And when you do, when you sit on that witness stand and try to destroy me in front of a jury, I want you to know that everyone you've ever cared about is one phone call away from ending up like Caroline. Well, her breath caught. And there's nothing you can do about it, Damian continued, because I'm already in prison. I'm already facing life sentences. What more can they do to me? Add another 40 years? Another 100? It doesn't matter. I'll die in here, but before I do, I'll make sure you suffer. Then kill me, Seraphina said. If you want me to suffer, just kill me and be done with it. Where's the fun in that? Damian smiled. No. You get to live. You get to carry the weight of every death I cause. Every person who suffers because you decided to fight me. That's your punishment. Seraphina looked at this man through the reinforced glass and realized something fundamental. She'd spent 6 months trying to destroy him through the legal system, through evidence and testimony and federal prosecutors. She'd believed that justice would be enough, but justice was never going to be enough. Because Damian Crowe didn't care about laws or consequences or right and wrong. He cared about control, about power, about making sure that even from inside a prison cell, he was still the one pulling the strings. And as long as he was alive, he'd keep pulling them. I have something else to offer, she said. I doubt it. Your son. Damian's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. A flicker of something that might have been surprise or might have been rage. What are you talking about? Your son, Seraphina repeated. Marcus Bellamy. Born April 1997. Mother, Jennifer Bellamy. She was your assistant in 1996. You paid her $200,000 to keep quiet and move to California. She died 3 years ago. Marcus is 29 now, lives in San Diego, works as a software engineer, has no idea his father is a mob boss currently sitting in federal prison. Damian's jaw tightened. How do you know about that? I hired investigators, Seraphina said. After Caroline disappeared, I realized you'd been hiding things from me our entire marriage. So I went looking for all of them, found Marcus, found 2 other women you paid off over the years, found properties you never told me about, found accounts even the federal prosecutors don't know about. Bullshit. Offshore account in the Cayman Islands under the name Michael Sterling. Balance, $47 million. Wire transfer history going back 15 years. Every payment you've ever made for anything illegal. Every bribe, every contract killing, every... Stop talking, Damian said. His voice had gone very quiet, very dangerous. I have it all, Seraphina continued. Documents, photos, bank statements. I've been building my own case while the federal prosecutors built theirs. And unlike their case, mine includes things you care about. Your son, your illegitimate accounts, your entire hidden life. What do you want? I want you to agree to something, she said. Right now, on record. These visits are recorded, aren't they? Audio and video? Yes. Good, Seraphina said. Then I want you to look into that camera and confess. Every crime, every murder, every illegal deal. I want you to give the prosecutors everything they need to convict you on every charge. And I want you to name everyone who ever worked for you. Every associate, every corrupt cop, every judge you owned. Everyone. And if I do that? I keep Marcus's identity secret, Seraphina said. I don't release the information about the Cayman accounts. I let you die in prison as Damian Crow instead of as a monster whose bastard son gets hunted down by everyone you've ever wronged. Damian stared at her. You're bluffing. Try me. You wouldn't do that to an innocent person. Marcus did nothing wrong. You're right, Seraphina said. He didn't. But I've learned from you, Damian. I've learned that sometimes you have to be willing to hurt innocent people to get what you want. You taught me that. When you killed Caroline. When you kidnapped Helena. When you destroyed my business and tried to erase me from existence. You taught me that morality is negotiable when survival is on the line. This isn't you. No, she agreed. It's not. The woman you married would never threaten an innocent person to get leverage, but that woman is gone. You killed her. What's left is someone who's willing to do whatever it takes to stop you. Damian leaned forward, put his hand against the glass. If you release that information, if you hurt Marcus, I will hunt you to the ends of the earth. I will spend every resource I have making sure you die slowly and painfully. Do you understand me? I understand that you finally care about something, Seraphina said. And now I have leverage. They stared at each other through the glass. You have 10 seconds to decide, Seraphina said. Confess on camera or I walk out of here and send everything I have about Marcus to every news organization in the country. Your choice. You're bluffing, Damian said again, but his voice had lost its certainty. 10, 9, 8. Seraphina. 7, 6, 5. You won't do it. 4, 3. Fuck you. 2. Wait, Damian said. Seraphina stopped counting. If I confess, he said slowly, if I give them everything, you keep Marcus out of it. You keep the Cayman accounts hidden, and you leave Vivian alone. Vivian? She didn't know anything, Damian said, about my business, about you, about any of it. I want your word that you'll leave her out of whatever revenge fantasy you're living. Seraphina thought about Vivian, young, naive, used by Damian the same way Seraphina had been used. Fine, Vivian stays out of it. And you disappear, Damian added. After the trial, after I'm convicted, you leave New York, you change your name, you never speak to press, you never write a book, you never profit from any of this. You just disappear and let me rot in peace. Deal, Seraphina said. Damian picked up the phone receiver with both hands, looked directly at the camera mounted in the corner of the room, and started talking. He confessed to racketeering, to money laundering, to ordering 3 murders over the past decade. He named names, associates, corrupt officials, business partners. He detailed deals and bribes and illegal operations spanning 15 years. Seraphina listened to all of it, listened to the man she'd loved condemn himself in his own words, giving prosecutors enough evidence to convict him 10 times over. When he finished, he looked at her through the glass. I hope you're happy. I'm not, she said honestly, but I'm alive. For now. Is that a threat? It's a promise, Damian said. I might be in prison. I might die here. But I have friends, Seraphina. People who owe me favors. People who will keep tabs on you even after I'm gone. So enjoy your victory. But know that you'll never be safe. Not really. Not ever. I can live with that, Seraphina said. She hung up the phone, stood up, walked toward the door where the guard was waiting. Behind her, Damian was screaming something. She couldn't hear it through the glass, didn't want to. She'd won. At least she'd won something, even if it felt like losing. Margaret Zhao was waiting outside the federal building when Seraphina emerged. So was Helena. Monica. 3 federal agents, and a news crew that had somehow gotten word that something was happening. Margaret grabbed her arm. What did you do? I got you a confession, Seraphina said. On camera, audio and video. Damian just admitted to everything. You have him. Margaret stared at her. How? Does it matter? Yes, Margaret said. It matters because if you coerced him, if you threatened him, if you did anything that violated his rights, That confession becomes inadmissible. Everything he said could be thrown out. I didn't coerce him, Seraphina lied. I asked him if he wanted to make things right, to confess and accept responsibility. And he agreed. Bullshit, Margaret said. Damian Crowe doesn't confess. He doesn't accept responsibility. He fights everything until the last possible second. So what did you do? I gave him something he wanted more than freedom, Seraphina said. I gave him the knowledge that his son would be safe. Margaret's expression shifted. What son? Doesn't matter, Seraphina said. What matters is that you have a full confession on tape. You have names, dates, details, everything you need to convict not just Damian, but half his organization. So take it and use it before his lawyers figure out a way to suppress it. She walked away before Margaret could ask more questions. Monica caught up to her half a block later. Where are you going? I don't know. You need protection. After what you just did, after that confession, Damian's associates are going to come after you. Let them, Seraphina said. She kept walking. I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of letting him control my life, even from inside a prison cell. So what's your plan? I don't have one. Seraphina. I don't have a plan, Monica, Seraphina said, louder now. She stopped walking, turned to face the woman who'd been protecting her for months. I walked into that building thinking I was going to surrender, thinking I was going to give up and let him win because I couldn't see any other way. And then I realized I had one more card to play, so I played it, and it worked. And now I don't know what happens next. What happens next is the trial, Monica said. You testify. The jury convicts. Damian goes to prison for life. You get to rebuild your life. And his associates? We deal with them. How? Seraphina asked. How do we deal with an entire organization of criminals who want me dead? How long can you protect me? A year? 5 years? The rest of my life? Is that what I have to look forward to? Living in fear forever? Monica didn't have an answer, because there wasn't one. Seraphina had won the battle, but the war would never really be over. Boken. The trial started 3 months later. Federal Courthouse, Southern District of New York, Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. The prosecution had 14 attorneys working the case. The defense had 20. News coverage was constant. Protesters outside demanding justice. Damian's supporters claiming he was being railroaded. Cameras everywhere. Seraphina sat in the gallery every day for 2 weeks while prosecutors presented their case. Financial records, witness testimony, wiretap recordings, and finally, the confession video from the federal holding facility. When they played it in court, the entire room went silent. Damian's voice echoing through speakers, calm, controlled, admitting to crimes that would put him away for life, naming names, detailing operations. His lawyers tried to have it suppressed, argued that he'd been coerced, that his rights had been violated, that the confession was obtained under duress. Judge Morrison reviewed the tape, watched it 3 times, then ruled it admissible. The defense fell apart after that. Witnesses who'd planned to testify on Damian's behalf suddenly developed amnesia or fled the jurisdiction. Associates who'd sworn loyalty cut deals with prosecutors to save themselves. The case that was supposed to take 3 months wrapped up in 6 weeks. On a Tuesday afternoon in late November, the jury returned after 2 days of deliberation. Guilty. All charges. Racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, witness tampering, kidnapping, obstruction of justice, 47 counts total. Damian sat at the defense table and didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't show any emotion at all. But when the marshals came to take him away, when they put the handcuffs on and started walking him out of the courtroom, he looked back over his shoulder, found Seraphina in the gallery, mouthed 2 words. Not over. Then he was gone. Sentencing happened 2 weeks later. Judge Morrison gave him life in federal prison without possibility of parole. 3 consecutive life sentences, actually. 1 for each murder he'd been convicted of conspiring to commit. The other charges added another 150 years on top of that. Damian would die in prison. He was 63 years old. Barring a miracle or a successful appeal, he'd never breathe free air again. Seraphina sat in the courtroom and listened to the judge read the sentence and felt absolutely nothing. No satisfaction, no relief. Just a vast emptiness where fear and anger had been living for the past year. It was over. She'd won. So why did it feel like she'd lost everything? After the sentencing, Margaret Zhao held a press conference on the courthouse steps. Talked about justice being served. About the importance of witnesses who come forward despite personal risk. About sending a message that no one is above the law. Seraphina stood in the back and watched. Didn't participate. Didn't give any statements. She just wanted to go home. Except she didn't have a home anymore. The apartment in Chelsea had been compromised too many times. She'd moved 3 times in the past 3 months, staying in safe houses and hotel rooms. Never in one place long enough to feel settled. That night she checked into a hotel near the airport, paid cash, used a fake name, sat on the bed and stared at the wall for hours. Her phone rang. Monica. Where are you? Somewhere safe. The press is looking for you. They want interviews, book deals, movie rights. Everyone wants to hear your story. I don't want to tell it, Seraphina said. You should think about it. You could make millions. I don't want millions. I want... She stopped. What did she want? To disappear, to forget, to never think about Damian Crowe again. I want to leave New York. Where will you go? I don't know. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere no one knows me. You can't run forever. Watch me, Seraphina said. She hung up. 3 days later, Margaret Zhao called. Said that federal prosecutors had arrested 14 of Damian's associates based on information from his confession. That the entire organization was collapsing. That Seraphina's testimony and cooperation had dismantled one of the largest criminal enterprises in New York. Seraphina listened. Said thank you. Hung up. Helena called the next day. Said the divorce was finalized. That Seraphina was entitled to a small settlement from assets that hadn't been seized. About $2 million. Enough to start over somewhere. Seraphina said to put it in a trust. To donate most of it to organizations that helped women escape domestic violence. To keep enough for herself to live modestly. She didn't want Damian's money. Didn't want anything that had come from him. A week after the sentencing, she received a letter. No return address. Postmarked from Montana. Inside was a single piece of paper with handwriting she recognized. Thank you for trying to protect me. I'm sorry I couldn't be braver. I hope you find peace. See? Seraphina read it 3 times. Caroline was alive. The photos Damian had sent were fake, or they were someone else, or he'd been lying to scare her. Caroline was alive and hiding somewhere, and probably would be for the rest of her life. At least one person had escaped. At least one person would be okay. Seraphina put the letter in her pocket, walked out of the hotel, caught a cab to Penn Station, bought a ticket for the first train heading south. Didn't care where it was going, just needed to move. Needed to put distance between herself and New York. The train pulled out of the station at sunset. She watched the city disappear through the window. The buildings, the bridges, the lights. She'd lived in Manhattan for 12 years. Met Damian here. Married him here. Built a life and watched it collapse. Now she was leaving, and she had no idea if she'd ever come back. Her phone buzzed. One last text from an unknown number. Her blood went cold. She almost didn't open it, but she did. You think you've won. You think sending me to prison means you're safe. But I have resources you don't know about, people who owe me favors, and they're going to collect. Watch your back, Seraphina, because I'll be watching it for you. Damian, even from prison, even convicted and sentenced and locked away for life. He was still trying to control her, still trying to make her afraid. She stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed a response. Come find me. Hit send, turned off her phone, and watched the darkness outside the train window swallow everything behind her. She didn't know where she was going, didn't know what came next. But for the first time in a year, she felt something that might have been hope. Or maybe it was just exhaustion. Hard to tell the difference anymore. The train carried her south through the night, past Philadelphia, past Baltimore, past cities she'd never visited and probably never would. At 3 a.m, somewhere in Virginia, she finally fell asleep and dreamed of walking into a ballroom in a crimson dress while chandeliers shattered overhead and Damian's empire burned to the ground around him. When she woke up, the sun was rising over fields she didn't recognize in a state she'd never been to before. And for just a moment, she felt free. Todd. But freedom was an illusion. 2 weeks later, while she was living in a cheap motel in Charleston, South Carolina, using a fake name and working at a diner for cash under the table, Monica called. "You need to come back to New York." "No." "Seraphina, something's happened." "I don't care." "Margaret Zhao is dead," Monica said. The world stopped. "What?" "Someone broke into her apartment 3 nights ago. Made it look like a robbery. But they didn't take anything valuable, just killed her and left." Seraphina couldn't breathe. "Damian, we don't know that." "Yes, we do," Seraphina said. "He's keeping his promise. He's going after everyone who helped me." "The FBI is investigating. The FBI can't stop him," Seraphina interrupted. "He's in prison, and he's still killing people. How is that possible?" "He has resources." "I know he has resources," Seraphina said. Her voice was shaking now. "That's the problem. He has endless resources and endless reach, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop him. Come back to New York. Let me protect you." "He'll just kill you too," Seraphina said. "Then what's your plan? Hide in South Carolina forever? Work at a diner until one of his people finds you?" "I don't know," Seraphina said. "I don't know anymore." She hung up, sat on the bed in her motel room, and tried to understand how they'd gotten here. She'd done everything right, gathered evidence, cooperated with prosecutors, testified, got a conviction, sent Damian to prison for life. And he was still winning, still destroying everyone she cared about, still proving that power didn't end just because you were behind bars. Her phone rang again. "Helena." "Did Monica tell you?" "Yes." "Margaret had a husband, 2 kids. They're devastated." "I know. This is your fault," Helena said. Her voice was cold, flat. "You started this war. You exposed Damian. You made him your enemy, and now people are dying because of you." "Helena, Margaret is dead because she helped you. How many more people have to die before you accept that you can't win against him?" "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to stop," Helena said. "Stop fighting. Stop trying to destroy him. Just disappear and let the rest of us survive." "He'll kill you anyway." "Maybe," Helena said, "but at least I'll die knowing I didn't provoke a monster." She hung up. Seraphina sat in the silence of her motel room and realized something terrible. Everyone was right. She'd started this war. She'd exposed Damian. She'd pushed and pushed until he had no choice but to push back. And now people were dying. Margaret. Possibly others. Eventually, Monica. Helena. Anyone who'd ever helped her. All because she'd wanted justice. All because she'd believed that the law would protect her. All because she'd been naive enough to think she could win. Her phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "One down. How many more before you surrender?" Damian, taunting her, proving his point. She could run, she could hide, she could disappear to the far corners of the earth. But he'd always be there, always reaching, always hunting, always winning. Unless she did something he wouldn't expect. Unless she stopped running and started fighting back in a way he couldn't anticipate. Unless she accepted that the only way to end this was to end him, permanently. Seraphina looked at her phone, at the message, at the threat. Then she made a decision that would either save her life or destroy whatever was left of her soul. She was going back to New York, and she was going to finish this, one way or another.